Hello, good evening, and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. Today in this session, let's discuss all the 100 questions asked in the prelims examination conducted today by the Union Public Service Commission. But first things first, basis our discussion that we have had internally, all the educators put together, one thing that you all may be waiting for is what is the cutoff that we are expecting or predicting. Our sense is that the cutoff can be anywhere between 95 to 100, 95 plus minus 5. The standard of the questions, relatively easier as compared to last year. Some factual, some conceptual, but I think if you would have followed our classes, there is no reason why you couldn't have done well. Those of you who have attended our classes, be it the Conquer Prelims on our Unacademy app or Conquer Prelims on YouTube, or who are part of our online classroom program, please let us know how did you fare in today's examination. And if our content has been of some help to you today in your prelims preparation and examination, please don't forget to press the like button. And basis that, we have come up with a mains program as well. Just like we did for prelims in the form of Conquer Prelims, we have a Conquer Mains program for those who will be writing the mains examination. 60 days of intensive program, 90 hours of classes. We'll cover current affairs and some important portions of your main syllabus. Comprehensively, we will give you notes, and every week there will be a test as well. So please follow that program should you wish to ace the mains examination as well. Let's get started and let's understand all these questions, discuss all these questions one by one. We'll start with polity, then Shyam sir would come and discuss economy and government schemes, and so on and so forth. Other teachers will share their thoughts as well as discuss all the questions. Clear? Let's get started and let's look at question number 1 as it appeared in the prelims examination. With reference to the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, consider the following statements. While any resolution for the removal of the Speaker of the Lok Sabha is under consideration, he shall not preside. This is correct. He shall not have the right to speak. This is incorrect. He shall not be entitled to vote on the resolution in the first instance. This is incorrect. So A1 only is the right answer. Deputy Speaker was in the news. Speaker also was in the news because of the suspension of a large number of MPs in the Lok Sabha. But the 17th Lok Sabha was the first one without a Deputy Speaker. So instead of asking a question on the Deputy Speaker, the UPSC asked the question on the Office of the Speaker. Normally, Speaker does not vote in the first instance because the Speaker is the presiding officer of the House. But on a particular bill or a motion, if there is a tie, 50-50, in that case the Speaker enjoys something called a casting vote just to avoid the deadlock. But when the motion for the removal of the Speaker is pending in the Lok Sabha, he does not preside over the Lok Sabha because that would be violation of the principles of natural justice. But there in that case is just like any other member of the Lok Sabha. He gets to speak, he gets to vote in the first instance as well. So that is why A1 only is the right answer. Let's look at another question. With reference to the Indian Parliament, consider the following statements. A bill pending in the Lok Sabha lapses on its dissolution. And this is something again that we have covered multiple times. Very briefly here, a bill which originates as well as is pending in Rajya Sabha does not lapse. So a bill which originates and is pending in Rajya Sabha does not lapse upon the dissolution of Lok Sabha. Which is the other category of bill which does not lapse? A bill which has been passed by both houses of the Indian Parliament and is awaiting President's assent, President's signature. That bill also does not lapse. A bill on which there has been a deadlock. And to resolve that deadlock, the President has notified the joint sitting of the two houses. That bill also does not lapse. Apart from that, there is a motion calling for the removal of the judge of the Supreme Court or High Court. That motion also does not lapse upon the dissolution of the Lok Sabha. Let's look at the question. A bill pending in the Lok Sabha lapses on its dissolution. This is correct. A bill passed by Lok Sabha and is pending in the Rajya Sabha, which means what is the originator? Who is the originator in this case? Lok Sabha. This bill lapses. A bill passed by the Lok Sabha and pending in the Rajya Sabha lapses on the dissolution of the Lok Sabha. A bill in regard to which the President of India notified his or her intention to summon the houses of a joint sitting lapses on the dissolution of the Lok Sabha. This bill does not lapse. So B, 1, 2 is the right answer. Let's look at another question. With reference to Parliament of India, consider the following statements. Again, factual question. I think all the students who have prepared thoroughly for this examination would have got this correct. Factual, conceptual as well. There is something called adjournment, then there is something called prorogation, there is something called dissolution. Who has the authority to adjourn the House? That power is with the presiding officer. And the presiding officer can either adjourn the House by specifying the date and time when we are going to meet again, or the presiding officer may adjourn the House sine die without specifying the date and time on which we are going to meet again. And this paves way for the President of India to prorogue, to terminate the session of the House. Clear? And then we know the dissolution as well. Normally, once 5 years term is over of the Lok Sabha is dissolved by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. But sometimes there can be a premature dissolution of Lok Sabha as well. So Prime Minister, commanding majority in the Lok Sabha, may advise the President, dissolve Lok Sabha. In that case, it's binding on the President to dissolve Lok Sabha. But what if the Prime Minister has been defeated on the floor of the Lok Sabha? He may have lost the confidence motion, or he may have been defeated in the no confidence motion. Then in that case, if he advises the President to dissolve the Lok Sabha, that advice is not binding on the President. Let's look at the question. Prorogation of a House by the President of India does not require the advice of the Council of Ministers. Why? President, for the lack of a better phrase, is a rubber stamp. She does not have the power of her own. She has to abide by the aid and advice of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. So statement 1 is incorrect. Prorogation of a House is generally done after the House is adjourned sine die, but there is no bar to the President of India prorogating the House which is in session. So sometimes in the middle of the session, we can see the President prorogating the House on the advice of the Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. So yes, normally after sine die, the President prorogues the House. But there is no bar that that first presiding officer has to adjourn the House sine die, and then he can prorogue, then the President can prorogue the House. That's not the case. Correct? Dissolution of the Lok Sabha is done by the President of India, who does so on the advice of the Council of Ministers. But CSAT students, this comma here is a relative clause. You would know that. Dissolution of the Lok Sabha is done by the President of India, who, save in exceptional circumstances, that means President in exceptional circumstances, when the Prime Minister has lost the majority on the floor of the Lok Sabha, that time, that advice of the Prime Minister, who is defeated on the floor of the Lok Sabha, is not binding on the President. Correct. 2 and 3, C is the right answer. Clear? Straightforward questions from Conquer Prelims, even options aren't changed. Very good. Consider the following statements regarding Nari Shakti Vandan and the Adhiniyam, which is basically the Women's Reservation Act, which is basically 106th Constitutional Amendment Act. And if you'd recall, on Thursday, I did a live session at 7 o'clock where we discussed all the important, I think Friday, we discussed all the important constitutional amendments. And the first constitutional amendment we discussed, this Nari Shakti Adhiniyam, 106th Constitutional Amendment Act. So provisions will come into effect from the 18th Lok Sabha? No. We don't know when it will be implemented. Why? Because first there has to be a delimitation. For that delimitation to happen, there has to be a census. Then at that time, that Lok Sabha which is in session should have been dissolved. So it will not come into effect from the 18th Lok Sabha, which is current Lok Sabha. That much is clear. This will be in force for 15 years after becoming, an act. And that's what we discussed also. There is a sunset clause. That means this bill, this law, this women's reservation shall expire after 15 years from its enactment. Whenever it is enacted, whenever it's entered into force, from that time till 15 years, this law will enter into force. After that, it will lapse. But there again, Parliament does have the power that it can allow continuation of this Women's Reservation Act. Clear? There are provisions for the reservation of seats for the scheduled castes, women within the quota reserved for scheduled caste. If there are seats reserved for SCs, as nearly as 1/3 of those seats shall be reserved for women. Women SCs, women STs. That's true. 2 and 3, C is the right answer. Let's look at another question. A writ of prohibition is an order issued by the Supreme Court or High Courts to do what? Writs under Article 32 or under Article 226 of the Constitution. Habeas corpus, mandamus, certiorari, prohibition, quo warranto. These are the things which are mentioned in the Constitution. And the writ of prohibition is done by the Supreme Court or High Courts to do what? To the lower courts, prohibiting continuation of proceedings in a case. And that's what we keep on discussing, that prohibition and certiorari apply to the judicial bodies. The judicial bodies, for example, the Supreme Court or the High Courts, will prohibit the lower courts from proceeding further in a case when fundamental rights are involved, where, for example, principles of natural justice have been violated. Let's look at another question. Again, factual question. It is the governor of the state who recognizes and declares any community of that state as a scheduled tribe. Now, if you have been following current affairs regularly, reading newspapers regularly, you all would be aware of what is happening in Manipur. You all would be aware of the conflict between the Métis and the Kukis. And that was precisely because the High Court had directed the state government that you should consider sending this recommendation to the center, presumably within 30 days of the receipt of this order. Consider granting ST status to the Métis. And the Supreme Court came heavily on the High Court on that matter, saying it's not your job, because we have discussed Milind versus State of Maharashtra, where a constitution bench of the Supreme Court, a 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court in the year 2000 said no state government, no tribunal, no courts will have the jurisdiction, will have the power to declare a community as a scheduled caste or a scheduled tribe. That power is with the President of India. So not the governor, that power is with the President. And President basically does that, bases the law passed by the Parliament, and then that SC/ST order, Constitution SC/ST order of 1950 is modified. A community declared as a scheduled tribe in a state need not be so in another state. There is a list of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes. States can have their own list of socially and educationally backward class of citizens. But when it comes to SCs and STs, you may be an SC in one state, but you may not be the SC in another state. And in fact, there was a judgment of the Supreme Court as well on this matter in the past few months. So this statement is correct. B2 only is the right answer. Clear? Okay. With reference to the Union budget, consider the following statements. The Union Finance Minister, on behalf of the Prime Minister, lays the annual financial statement before both houses of the Parliament. Constitution refers to budget as annual financial statement under Article 112 of the Constitution. But Finance Minister presents this budget on behalf of the President, not on behalf of the Prime Minister. So statement 1 is incorrect. At the union level, no demand for grant can be made except on the recommendation of the President of India. This is a factual statement under Article 113, correct. No representation without, no taxation without representation, as was the cry during the American Revolution. And that is why we say a money bill cannot be introduced in Rajya Sabha, can be introduced in Lok Sabha, because Lok Sabha is directly elected by the people. Similarly, no demand for grant can be made except on the recommendation of the President of India. So 2 only, B is the right answer. Let's look at another question. How many delimitation commissions have been constituted by the Government of India till December 2023? Again, something that we have discussed multiple times. Delimitation, which happens after every census, ideally should happen after every census. The first delimitation happened after 1951 census, then 1963, then 1973. After that, there was a constitutional amendment which said no more delimitation till 2001. Then delimitation was done in 2001. Its final award was given in 2008, which means how many times delimitation commissions have been constituted? 4 times. Although we could say that there was another delimitation commission which was set up for Jammu and Kashmir. But since there is no other option except 4, so 4 is the right answer. Right? I got said D, and this was the first question. Your confidence would have zoomed. Okay. The Constitution's 71st Amendment Act 1992 amends the 8th schedule to the Constitution to which of the following languages? Factual question. Some of you may not have read it, some of you may not have followed it, but even then you could have made out Konkani, Manipuri, Nepali, 1, 2, 3 is the right answer. Factual question, that's something that some of you may have got right. Great. Another question, which of the following statements are correct about the Constitution of India? Factual question directly, in a sense that now parts have been asked by the UPSC. Powers of the municipalities are given in Part 9A of the Constitution. For that, even if you are not aware, just go with the flow. For example, this is how I teach in my live classes. Start with preamble, then Union and its territory, Part 1. Citizenship, Part 2. Fundamental rights, Part 3. Directive principles, Part 4. Fundamental duties, Part 4, capital A. Then Union, then states, then Union territories, then panchayats, municipalities. That's how this statement is correct. Emergency provisions, correct. Provisions related to amendment of the Constitution, correct. All these statements are correct. Purely factual question. Clear? Okay. Which one of the following statements is correct as per the Constitution of India? Interstate trade and commerce is a state subject under the state list. Now, interstate trade and commerce. In fact, when we read the Constitution, if the state government wants to, if the state legislature wants to introduce a bill in the state legislature trying to impose restrictions on interstate trade and commerce, such a bill cannot be even introduced in the state legislature without the prior consent of the President of India. So interstate has to be under union list, can't be under state list. Eliminate this. Interstate migration is a state subject under the state list. Interstate again. Interstate quarantine is a union subject under the union list. This is correct. Corporation tax is a state subject under the state list. You could have easily eliminated this. Why? Because when you look at the Finance Commission, which is constituted every 5 years by the President under Article 280 of the Constitution, then there is something called divisible pool of taxes. What is the percentage of these taxes that can be shared with the states? One of the biggest contributor to that divisible pool of tax is the income tax, is the corporate tax. So income tax and corporate tax, these are imposed by the center, collected by the center, and then distributed between the states, right? So whenever interstate is talking about, it has to be under union. Intrastate can be within the state, in the state list. For example, intrastate trade and commerce, that's under the state list. But interstate, it's under the union list. Clear? Under which of the following articles of the Constitution of India has the Supreme Court of India placed the right to privacy? Now, this is a repetition of one of the previous year's questions. In the famous 9-judge bench Supreme Court verdict in K.S. Puttaswamy case, Supreme Court said right to privacy is a fundamental right under Article 21 of the Constitution. Clear? Great. Which of the following statements about the Ethics Committee in the Lok Sabha is or are correct? If some of you would have followed our UCAN sessions, where we discussed current affairs, every week 4 current affairs live classes are conducted, that too subject-wise, polity-based current affairs, economy-based current affairs, environment and ecology-based current affairs. Even in Concord Prelims, there I specifically discussed the difference between the Ethics Committee and the Privileges Committee, because it was in the news. It's not something that I got a dream that this question can be important, because it was in the news. And that is why keep it simple. Focus on the static portion of your syllabus and keep on linking it with the current affairs. 2 of the most important documents that you must follow. One is the syllabus. The other is the previous year's question papers. Please don't neglect these 2 documents. And then keep it simple. Read, study, watch lectures, attend classes, whatever you want to do. But at the same time, keep on linking it with current affairs. And once you do that, there is no reason why you should be scared of this exam. Now, because I might tell you this, because it is argued that this time the paper was relatively easier. Now we might see a good jump of students starting preparing for this examination. That can also happen, and that will increase the competition. Initially, it was an ad hoc committee. That is correct. Till 13th Lok Sabha, it was an ad hoc committee. Then it was made a permanent body only in 2005. Only a member of the Lok Sabha can make a complaint relating to unethical conduct of a member of the Lok Sabha. No, any person can make a complaint through the member of the parliament. So only a member of the Lok Sabha can make a complaint. This statement is incorrect. This committee cannot take up matter which is sub judice. So a matter which is pending before the court. Normally, the courts have the power to deal with those matters. The committees do not take that matter. Even for that matter, adjournment motion, if you would have read. Adjournment motion, which is if 50 members of the Lok Sabha write to the Speaker that we want to introduce an adjournment motion, which is an extraordinary device. The discussion on an adjournment motion cannot be more than 2.5 hours. But there also you have to take a matter which is of urgent matter of public importance. And that matter should not have been discussed previously. And that matter should not have been pending before the court of law, should not have been sub judice. That is why, clear cut, there is a segregation. Those matters which are pending with the judiciary, Parliament would not take it up. So 1 and 3, C is the right answer. As per Article 368 of the Constitution of India, the Parliament may amend any provision of the Constitution by way of, under Article 368, Parliament can amend any provision of the Constitution save basic structure. And that basic structure, you would know, was propounded by the Supreme Court in a landmark Keshavananda Bharti versus State of Kerala. Adding something to the Constitution is an amendment. Repealing something from the Constitution is an amendment. And that is what I tell my students when we discuss amendment part of the Constitution. I said even adding a comma or a full stop to the Constitution is a constitutional amendment. Making any change to the Constitution is a constitutional amendment under Article 368 of the Constitution. So whether it is addition, variation, repeal, all of them come under constitutional amendment under Article 368. Clear? Very good. Which of the following statements are correct in respect of a money bill in the Parliament? Article 109 mentions special procedure in respect of the money bills. Article 110 talks about a money. Article 109 talks about a money bill in the sense that money bill can be introduced only in Lok Sabha, that too with the prior recommendation of the President. It's Article 110 that defines money bill. A bill is a money bill if it deals with any of the matters, only those matters which are mentioned underneath, which are mentioned below. Imposition of tax, alteration of tax, remission of tax, so on and so forth. So Article 109 talks about a special provision with respect to money bill. A money bill shall not be introduced in the Council of States. Cannot be introduced. It can be introduced only in House of the People, which is the Lok Sabha. The Rajya Sabha can either approve the bill or suggest changes, but cannot reject it. This is also correct. Rajya Sabha cannot amend a money bill. Rajya Sabha cannot reject a money bill. Rajya Sabha can only make recommendations, but if these recommendations are not acceptable to Lok Sabha, doesn't matter, the bill is passed. Because Rajya Sabha has an inferior role when it comes to a money bill. Amendments to a money bill suggested by the Rajya Sabha have to be accepted by the Lok Sabha. No. 1, 2, 3, C is the right answer. Let's look at another question. The Northeastern Council was established by the Northeastern Council Act 1971. Previously, there were 5 zonal councils enacted under States Reorganization Act 1956. Northern, Southern, Eastern, Western, Central. Then in 1971, because of Northeastern Zonal Council Act, which came into force in 1972, another zonal council was set up called as Northeastern Zonal Council, which was amended in 2002, for which some changes were made. Now, according to this amendment, subsequent to this amendment, the council comprises which of the following members? Governor of the constituent state? Yes. Chief Minister of the constituent state? Yes. 3 members to be nominated by the President of India? Yes. Previously, there used to be 1 member. After this amendment, 3 members were to be nominated by the President. And the President will nominate the chairperson of this council as well. The Home Minister of India? No. 1, 2, 3. A is the right answer. Clear? Okay, so that is it that we had to discuss when it comes to the prelims-based topics, prelims-based questions that were asked in the Civil Services examination, prelims examination today. There were some questions, for example, on the Government of India Act 1935, on, for example, who was the President of the Constituent Assembly before Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Mr. Sachindanand Sinha. That is taken up by Abhishek sir in history because he covers, and he has covered that in his history classes. And before I pause here, I will invite and request Shyam sir to come and discuss economy-based questions that were asked today. And before I leave, I will leave you with a message that is there on the screen. Should you wish, if at all you think that you need guidance, counseling, coaching, live classes to enable you to prepare better for this examination, you can consider our live online classroom program on June 24th. June 24th onwards, this batch would start, and I will start with Indian polity, and in close to 32 classes, I will complete Indian polity. After that, we will discuss and complete other subjects. So that is our guarantee. We will complete your syllabus on time, strictly according to the requirements of this examination, nothing more, nothing less. And as part of this course, UCAN is also integrated, which means you don't have to follow current affairs separately. That's also part of this program. Should you wish to consider enrolling in these programs, please let us know. The number is available on the screen. Get in touch with us. I'll see you in the live classes. Over to Shyam sir. Please come and discuss economy-based questions. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to like this session as well, if at all we have been of some help to your civil services preparation. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination to all the English medium civil service aspirants. After discussing the polity questions, now let's start discussing the economy and the questions which have appeared on government schemes. Let's start. Question number 41. Statement 1. If the United States of America were to default on its debt, holders of US Treasury bonds will not be able to exercise their claims to receive payment. And statement 2, USA government debt is not backed by any hard assets but only by the faith of the government. Now, what is the basic idea? Very often there is a discussion. How much is the debt of the government in case of Government of India? And in the same way, how much is the debt of USA government is also discussed. In the last 1 year, there has been a discussion how much is the limit that has been decided by the Congress regarding the government borrowings by the USA government. Generally, the idea is that the government there has to get the approval from the Congress if they want to borrow from the market. And just like I'm pretty sure you must have studied in the context of Indian government, there also in the USA government, they issue instruments in the market which are generally called as treasury bonds. The treasuries which are issued by the government to borrow from the market. Now look at the statement 1. If the United States of America were to default on its debt, holders of the US Treasury bonds will not be able to exercise the claims to receive the payment. Meaning what? Imagine you have borrowed or you have basically given money to Government of India. Instead of Government of USA, let's say Government of India. So Government of India has issued a bond. You have given the money. Now what if Government of India defaults? In such situation, I hope you understand, in such situations, what is the recourse for you? Can you basically drag the government to the court? Can you go to any international agency to complain against Government of India? That is not provided. So statement 1 is correct. It is correct. There is no recourse for you to basically drag the government. Statement 2. The USA government debt is not backed by any hard assets but only by the faith of the government. On the faith of the government, there is investment that is done in the government bonds. This is true in case of USA. It is true in case of, let's say Government of India as well. If Government of India issues a bond to you, government doesn't provide a security. Government doesn't provide a collateral for that. And that is the precise reason, please understand, there is a term called as unsecured instruments. Now some of you will ask me, sir, if these are not guaranteed by assets, then why will anybody invest in this? Why will anybody take let's say risk by investing in such instrument? The investment is done by the investors only because there is a faith. There is a faith on the government that they will repay the loan. They will repay the money that they have borrowed by issuing the instruments. So please be very careful. In case of such government bonds, there is no collateral, there is no backing of the asset. You have a faith on the government, hence you invest in such bonds. And if you look at the government of India itself, has government of India defaulted on any such borrowings in the past? Absolutely no. Has the government of USA defaulted on such borrowings in the past? Absolutely no. So look at both of the statements, both are correct. Both are correct. But if you look at it very carefully, don't you think because there is no security provided, because there is no asset provided, no backing provided, that is the precise reason why you will not be able to claim anything if the government doesn't repay the loan. If the government has given an asset, you can simply go to the court, file a complaint and get the asset transferred into your custody. But because there is no asset here, right, basically you will not be able to, right, raise the claim over the payment that has been defaulted by the government. So both the statements are true. Second statement is the explanation for the statement 1. So right option for question number 41 will be option A. Let me go to question number 42 now. Consider the following statements. Statement 1, syndicated lending spreads the risk of borrower default across multiple lenders. There is one more statement, we'll have a look at it later. What is the idea of a syndicated lending? Whenever you come across the concept of syndicated lending, it simply means rather than one lender giving a loan, multiple lenders will come together and provide a loan. For example, let's say there are 3 lenders, A, B and C. All the 3 will come together and will provide a loan, let's say to a company or a borrower XYZ. This is essentially referred to as a concept of syndicated lending. And what is the use of syndicated lending? The idea of a syndicated lending will help in ensuring large value loans are provided. Correct? Large value loans are provided. And second, whenever syndicated lending is done, it will ensure that a single lender will not be facing the risk. Multiple lenders coming together essentially means the risk is divided amongst all the 3 lenders, not a single lender. Let's start. Statement 1, syndicated lending spreads the risk of borrower default across multiple lenders. Yes. Essentially it means if the borrower defaults, is the risk concentrated in one lender or it is divided amongst all the 3 lenders? It is divided. So statement 1 is correct. Statement 2, the syndicated loan can be a fixed amount lump sum of funds but cannot be a credit line. What do you mean by cannot be a credit line? Instead of taking a loan in a lump sum amount like this, in one shot, can you keep on taking, let's say 100 crore rupee worth of loan has been granted, but you will take the 100 crore in tranches, in groups like this. That is basically correct. In case of syndicated lending, it is allowed. So statement 2 is wrong. Statement 2 is wrong and statement 1 is correct. Which one of the following is correct in respect of the above statements? Statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. Right option will be option C now. Question number 43. Consider the following statements in respect of digital rupee. What do you understand by digital rupee? I'm pretty sure you must have come across a term by CBDC in the newspaper. What is CBDC? Central Bank's digital currency. The digital currencies is nothing but the concept of electronic rupees. That is, instead of giving a printed currency note to all of you, I'm pretty sure all of you have the currency notes. You have gone to the center by paying a currency note, or you have used UPI. You have come to your house by paying, let's say, the auto wala, the 50 rupees or 100 rupees, etc. So argument is, I'm pretty sure all of you have the physical currency notes. Hard copies of the currency notes are there with you. Instead of providing hard copies, printed hard copies, Reserve Bank of India is promoting the concept of digital currencies. That is, no printing will be done. The digital versions of the hard copies will be transferred to you. That is CBDC. Now, Let's look at the statements. It is a sovereign currency issued by Reserve Bank of India in alignment with its monetary policy. Definitely yes. Instead of issuing hard copies, they will be printing or they will be converting that into a digital currency and they will be issuing that. Yes, it is a currency which is issued by RBI according to the monetary requirements. Some of you will ask me this question, sir, why regarding the monetary policy? I felt regarding the term monetary policy, I felt that was wrong. My dear, whether it is a printed rupee or digital currency doesn't matter. If RBI will increase the money supply of digital currency, that will also increase the demand for goods and services in the market. So statement 1 is absolutely correct. Second one, it appears as a liability on RBI's balance sheet. There was so much of discussion regarding RBI's balance sheet, and finally UPSC is asking a question regarding the currencies. Please remember this. Any money that has been printed or minted and issued by RBI will always be mentioned as a liability for RBI. It will always be mentioned as a liability for RBI. Now some of you will feel that, sir, it should not be liability, it should be an asset. If RBI has to, let's say, issue 100 rupees in the market, it cannot simply issue 100 rupees. It has to collect certain security. So when they will issue this 100 rupee, I hope you understand, as a result of that, they will collect certain security and issue the currencies. That is the reason the security collected will be part of the asset and the currency issued will be part of liabilities. So it appears as a liability, yes. It is insured against inflation by its very design. Please remember, nothing is insured. Especially money, it is not insured. Until unless they tell you it is inflation indexed, it is not insured. Money will keep on losing value. It is freely convertible against commercial bank money and cash. Yes. If you have a digital rupee, can you convert it? Can you get, let's say, 50 rupees by providing it? Can you transfer it and again go to the bank and withdraw 50 rupees? Absolutely yes. 1, 2 and 4 are right. Right option for question number 43 will be option D. Let me go to question number 51. Total fertility rate in an economy is defined as. The concept of TFR was discussed in the context of Finance Commission. It was discussed in the context of Chinese population. It was discussed in the context of India, Taiwan discussing a labor mobility pact, etc. Total fertility rate essentially means in a lifetime of a woman, how many live births will be provided by the women. That is, in the lifetime, how many live children will be born by a woman is called as a total fertility rate. Very straightforward question. Right option will be the average number of live births a woman would have by the end of her childbearing age. So 51, right option will be option D. Question number 52 now. Consider the following statements. In India, non-banking financial companies can access the liquidity adjustment facility window of Reserve Bank of India. Statement 1 is correct. Now some of you will say, sir, I read it is only for commercial banks. There is also a term called as primary dealers. Primary dealers can be banks, can be NBFCs as well. And NBFCs, which are basically primary dealers, and primary dealers are those which will deal with government securities. They can avail the LAF. They can avail the LAF. So first statement is correct. In India, the foreign institutional investors can hold the government securities. Yes, foreign institutional investors can purchase government bonds. In fact, this was being discussed very recent in the context of Government of India's bonds being included in the JP Morgan bond index. Second statement is true. In India, the stock exchanges can offer separate trading platform for debts. Yes, the debt instruments, for that a separate trading platform, that is essentially a separate system is set up for trading the bonds. That statement is also true. So question number 52, all the three statements are right. Right option will be option C, 1, 2 and 3. Question number 53 now. In India, which of the following can trade in corporate bonds and government securities? Individual investors, that is retail investors such as you and me, can we purchase government bonds? Yes. Can we purchase corporate bonds? Why not? If you're interested, there are multiple platforms which will allow you to purchase corporate bonds as well as government bonds as well. So retail investors, yes. In fact, the highest amount of bonds which are purchased of, let's say, the government issued bonds are by insurance companies as well as pension funds. So insurance companies, can they purchase corporate bonds as well as government bonds? Yes. What about pension funds? Can they invest and purchase the government bonds as well as corporate bonds? Again, the answer is yes. This was in fact being discussed when Government of India announced first time issuance of 50-year government bonds. One of the reasons the government issued these 50-year bonds was because the demand was there for long-term investors, from the long-term investors, which are nothing but insurance investors or insurance companies or insurance funds as well as pension funds. All the three are correct. Right option will be option D for question number 53. Question number 54 now. Exchange traded funds, motor vehicles, currency swap. Which of the above is or are considered financial instruments? Whenever you come across the term financial instrument, please understand, an investor or a person who has money can invest and purchase real assets as well as financial assets. For example, if you have 100 rupees and you purchase a piece of land, that is a real asset. That is physical assets. And if you have 100 rupees and you invest, let's say, in certain financial instruments, that is a financial asset. So here, out of all the three, which of the following are financial instruments? First one, ETF. Of course, yes. We have discussed regarding ETF in multiple current affairs classes as well. So ETF is a group of securities which are traded, which are listed and traded in the market. Financial instrument, yes. Motor vehicle, it's a physical asset. Straightforward. Wrong. And here itself we can use elimination method to get an answer. Currency swaps, right? The currency swaps are basically agreements, instruments where one party will exchange currencies with another party and purchase it. That is basically the idea of a currency swap. So third one is also correct. So 1 is correct, 3 is correct. Right option for question number 54 will be option D. Let me go to question number 55 now. With reference to the sectors of Indian economy, consider the following pairs. They have given 4 economic activities and they have asked you to pair correctly, or they have asked you whether the pairing is correct. Whenever you study economy, you will come across a division: primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. Please remember, primary means when you get directly from the environment, when you get directly from the nature, primary. Secondary, what you get from the nature, you produce. Using that, you convert that into something. That is secondary, manufacturing. And whenever you talk about services, that is called as tertiary. So let's start. Storage of agriculture produce. Do not focus on agriculture produce, focus on storage here. You are not producing agriculture commodities, you are storing. Storing means services. Services is part of tertiary, hence the first one is wrong. Dairy farm. Right, basically agriculture and allied activities are part of primary. Agriculture and allied activities are part of primary, hence second one is correct. Mineral exploration, exploration, not mining, exploration. Exploration is services, hence tertiary, third one is correct. Weaving of cloth, let's say you will get cotton. You will convert that particular cotton into a cloth, that is weaving of cloth. That is whatever is available in nature, you are converting that into a product, that is industries or manufacturing. That is secondary, correct. So 2, 3 and 4 are correct. Right option for question number 55 will be C option, or only 3 of them are correct. Question number 57. With reference to physical capital in Indian economy, consider the following pairs. Farmer's plow, computer, yarn used by the weaver and petrol. You need to find out which of them are correctly paid in the context of working capital as well as the fixed capital. The basic idea is simple. Whatever money you spend when you are manufacturing or you are producing, you are involved in industries, etc. Whenever you spend money to take care of day-to-day activities, to take care of day-to-day expenses, that is called as working capital. And on the other side, when you use this money to acquire an asset, purchase an asset, that is called as a fixed capital. So let's start. Farmer's plow. The wooden plow or whatever plow it is purchased by the farmers, it is an asset for the farmers. Is it working capital? No. It is not working capital, it is actually a fixed capital or capital asset. Computers. Do you need to spend money on computers if you're running a software company? Don't you think if you invest and you purchase the computers, you will use it for a longer duration, durable investment? Yes, it is a fixed capital. Yarn used by the weaver. On day-to-day basis, the weaver will keep on purchasing the yarn. So the investment will be done. The money will be spent periodically. So it is not fixed capital, it is working capital. And petrol, right? Is it working capital? No, it is. It is a working capital. It is not a fixed asset. So fourth one is correct. Second one is correct. Question number 57. Only 2 pairs are correct. Right option will be option B. Only 2 are correct. Okay. Question number 59 now. With reference to the rules imposed by the RBI while treating foreign banks, consider following statements. There is no minimum capital requirement for wholly owned banking subsidiaries in India. What do you mean by wholly owned? A foreign bank will open a bank in India which is completely owned by the foreign bank. These are called as wholly owned subsidiaries. Wholly owned subsidiaries. So there is no minimum capital requirement. No, there is a capital requirement. Whether you are an, right, let's say a small finance bank, whether you are a payment bank, or whether you have done, right, any other bank in India or opened any other bank in India, there is a minimum capital requirement. There is a capital requirement. So first statement is wrong. For wholly owned banking subsidiaries in India, at least 50% of the board members should be Indian nationals. This is more of a technical statement, slightly difficult, I do understand, because until unless you have read regarding wholly owned banks, you will not be knowing this. So second statement is wrong. It needs, understand this, at the most it has to be 50%, not at least 50%. So question number 59, both the statements are wrong. Right option will be option D, neither 1 nor 2. Let me go to question number 60. With reference to corporate social responsibility CSR rules in India, consider the following statements. Now the question on CSR is not randomly picked. Some of you will be of the opinion that all the questions are randomly picked. No, CSR particularly it has been picked up because it was introduced after 2013 in India. We have completed 10 years. We have completed 10 years of CSR implementation. That's a reason this question has been asked. CSR rules specify that expenditures that will benefit the company directly or its employees will not be considered as CSR activities. This is, understand, this is correct. In fact, very recently there is a proposal. A company, if it spends money on skilling of its own labor, I repeat, if the company spends money to skill its own labor, it should be considered as CSR. Currently, it is not being considered. So statement 1 correct. If you're going to spend money for your own employee benefit, it will not be considered as CSR. Yes. CSR rules do not specify minimum spending on CSR activities. No. It in fact specifies a 2%. There is a formula. 2% of last 3 years average profits. Right. So second statement is wrong. First one is correct. Question number 60, right option will be option A, 1 only. Question number 70 now. With reference to the Indian economy, collateral borrowing and lending obligations are the instruments of, right, unlikely question or a typical question. Generally, when you talk about money market, you will come across government instruments such as treasury bills, you will come across call money market, certificate of deposits, right, CPs, etc. But suddenly this year, unlikely question from the money market has been asked, that is collateral borrowing and lending obligations. What is the basic idea? Whenever you talk about money market instruments, generally collateral is not involved. Security is not involved in case of money market instrument. Whereas in case of the collateralized borrowing and lending obligations, CBLO, which was introduced post 2003 in India, there is a security provision. You need to provide collateral to borrow for a short duration, generally from 1 day to around 18 days or 19 days. So it's a short-term instrument, no doubt, but the security is involved here. That's the basic idea of a CBLO. Question number 70, right option is option C, money market instrument. It's a money market instrument. Okay. Question number 76 now. Which one of the following is the correct description of 100 million farmers, purely picked up from, right, let's say international events? 100 million farmers, it's an initiative. It's an initiative which has been launched by World Economic Forum, WEF, World Economic Forum. And 100 million farmers is basically talking about providing certain information to farmers, bringing the farmers together so that we will be using certain methods, certain systems will be used. We will make the cultivation, the climate change resilient, etc. That is basically the argument of 100 million farmers. It is a platform for accelerating the transition towards food and water systems are net zero, nature positive, and that aims to increase farmer resilience. Right option for question number 76, again purely picked up from international events. Right option is option A. Question number 81, consider the following airports: Doni Polo Airport, Kushinagar International Airport, Vijayawada International Airport. In the recent past, which of the above have been constructed as greenfield projects? What is the idea of a greenfield project? And again, whenever you come across the idea of a greenfield and brownfield, brownfield means infrastructure is already there. Greenfield means the infrastructure has to be developed from beginning, from the scratch. Out of these three, the first as well as the second are greenfield airports. The reason is very simple. The question has been asked because of the first one, Doni Polo Airport. This was inaugurated by the Prime Minister last year in one of the northeastern states. So first one is a greenfield project, second one is a greenfield project. So 1 and 2 are correct. Right option for question number 81 will be A, 1 and 2. Now certain schemes which have been asked. With reference to Digital India Land Records Modernization Program, consider the following statements. To implement the scheme, central government provides 100% funding. What is this Digital India Land Records Modernization Program? Earlier, multiple schemes have been implemented by the government to address the issue of land reforms or to promote and implementation of land reforms. But historically, one problem that has been faced is land records are not digitized. Land records are not modernized or let's say updated regularly. In order to address this, Government of India has implemented Digital India Land Records Modernization Program. Is it 100% provided? Funding is provided by the government? Yes, statement 1 is correct. 100% of the expenditure is incurred by the government. Under the scheme, cadastral maps are digitized. Cadastral maps are basically the maps which have been prepared at the lowest level. Are the maps digitized? Are we converting these maps into digital maps? Yes. In fact, many of these particular areas now or reforms are focused on digitization of the land records. An initiative has been undertaken to transliterate the records of rights from the local language to any of the languages recognized by the Constitution of India. The argument of Government of India was that the land records which are available at the local level are not available in other regional languages. It's not available in other regional languages. So that is the precise reason. That's a precise reason government says we will have to convert it. We will have to translate these particular, let's say the maps or let's say the documents into other languages which are mentioned under the Constitution of India. Hence the second statement is right and third statement is also correct. Okay, so all the three statements regarding Digital India Land Records Modernization Program are correct. Right option for question number 8 will be option D. Option D is the right one. Question number 9. With reference to Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matrutva Abhiyan, consider the following statements. Consider the following statements. The scheme guarantees a minimum package of antenatal care services to women in the second and third trimesters of pregnancy and a 6 months post-delivery healthcare service in any government health facility. Very, if you ask me, this question is very tough in the sense there are so many parts to the statement, so many parts to only one statement. Okay, so this scheme guarantees a minimum package of antenatal care services to women in the second and third trimester of pregnancy. Yes. 6 months post-delivery healthcare services in any government health facility. Second part of the statement is doubtful. This is basically a problem. Second part of the statement is a problem. Under this scheme, private sector healthcare providers of certain specialties can volunteer to provide services at nearby government health facilities. Yes, yes, right. So second statement is true. The private practitioners, can they participate under the scheme? Yes, they are allowed to participate, but they will be allowed to participate as volunteers. They will be allowed to participate as a volunteers, and they will have to provide these services not in their hospital but in a government hospital. Second statement is true. Right option for question number 9 will be option B, 2 only. Question number 10 now. With reference to Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Man Dhan Yojana, consider the following statements. Consider the following statements. Now, what is this Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Man Dhan Yojana? Please understand this. Under this, Government of India wanted to identify certain beneficiaries and ensure that once they attain the age of 60 years, certain amount of pension will be provided to them. Certain amount of pension will be given to them. Let's start. The entry age group for enrollment in the scheme is 21 to 40 years. 21 to 40 years. Statement is wrong. Why? According to the guidelines issued by the government, the enrollment age is 18 years to 40 years. 18 to 40 years, that is the enrollment age. So first statement is wrong. Second statement, the age specific contribution shall be made by the beneficiary. Of course, yes. If you enroll in a particular age, according to your age enrollment, you will be asked to make certain contribution. You cannot be asking all the beneficiaries to make the same amount of contribution. It depends on one beneficiary to another beneficiary. Second statement is correct. Third one, each subscriber under the scheme shall receive a minimum pension of 3,000 rupees per month after attaining the age of 60 years. After attaining the age of 60 years. Yes, this is also true. This is also true. Right, that is, after attaining the age of 60 years, you will be provided with 3,000 rupees per month. Family pension is applicable to the spouse and unmarried daughters. This is wrong. This statement is wrong. So second one is correct. Third one is correct. I'm pretty sure some of you would be doubtful, or some of you would have got a doubt in the examination regarding statement C, because there are multiple schemes where you would have read the minimum pension will start from 1,000 rupees and up to, right, let's say 4,000, 5,000, multiples of 1,000, etc. But again, in case of Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Man Dhan Yojana, it is 3,000 rupees per month. So third one is correct. Second one is correct. Right option for question number 10 will be option B. 2 and 3 only are true. Done. So these are the various questions I wanted to discuss with all of you. After I finish, Mukesh sir will be starting with the questions from geography. But before I wind up, a very important point. If you ask me, sir, what about the difficulty level of question paper this year? Was it difficult? Was it easier? According to you, what do you think was the level? My answer to you will be, compared to, let's say, last 1 year, or in the last 1 year, if you make a comparison, this question paper was easier. I do agree, certain questions which are generally not asked in UPSC, or generally you would have not studied regarding that, has been asked by UPSC, and that is a general trend that is done by UPSC every year. But out of, let's say, all these questions, majority of the questions were either connected to current affairs and right, or connected to the basics. And again, I will tell you this, especially for Indian economy, those who are preparing for mains examination now, please do not miss out on current affairs. Please update your current affairs. Update the current affairs, link that with the static subject. So one more very important point, if you are interested, the All India, right, that is a comprehensive preparation program has been launched. We are providing this particular, let's say, the package at 24,999 rupees. The course duration will be for 12 months, which will get extended by another 3 months. Under this, specific subject faculties will be handling the subjects such as Sarmad sir, myself, Chethan sir, etc. If you're interested, please do check out the link provided in the description. Thank you. I will hand over the discussion now to Mukesh sir.
Hello, a very warm good evening to all of you and welcome to Unacademy. Welcome to the discussion of questions for the subject of Geography and Environment and Ecology. Overall, before initiating the discussion itself, as we had discussed in the trend analysis, you will find that the questions are mostly conceptual in nature. But before going ahead with that, let us straightforward jump into the questions, and without further ado, let us try to find out what the solutions of each of the questions are. So, we basically start with, just a moment, so we basically take a look at the first question of geography. That was question number 19. Now, if you take a look at question number 19, so here it is about Red Sea. Now, this was on expected lines because Red Sea and the region around Bab al-Mandeb and Gulf of Aden had been in so much news, so much of discussion. So that is why it was very much on expected lines. That is why this year you get one question of Red Sea from the portion of IR also. And this is a question from the perspective of geography. So Red Sea receives very little precipitation in any form whatsoever. So this particular statement is correct because when we talk about the location of Red Sea is situated in the region of subtropical high pressure belt, subtropical high pressure zone. And given the fact that it is surrounded by land areas from all sides, that is where even the winds, they are generally offshore in nature and you don't have that much moisture being carried over that region. Hence, Red Sea receives very little precipitation. So this is correct. No water enters the Red Sea from rivers. This is also correct because when we talk about the major rivers, all of them, they drain into the region of Mediterranean. but none of the rivers, they drain into the region of Red Sea. On the eastern part of the Red Sea, you have the Rub al Khali desert in the Arabian Peninsula, which is particularly dry. So that is where it is also a correct statement. So here both of them are correct. This was an easy question. So here the correct answer is going to be both 1 and 2. Now, moving on to the next question. Next question is again a simple map-based question. The longest border between any two countries in the world is between Canada and the US. These are the countries which share a very long border. It is across these borders that you have the 5 Great Lakes, that is Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie and Superior, along with the presence of a kind of river, that is St. Lawrence River. So this is the longest border, and it is also in the eastern part of the border. It is quite populated for that matter. So here the correct answer is going to be A. Again, very simple, even though you can put it under the categorization of factual, but even if you have slightest of the recollection of the world map, even if you have not studied the map in detail and you have the slightest of the recollection, you can get this correct. Now, then this is a question with regards to water vapor. With reference to water vapor, which of the following statements is or are correct? Here, the first statement, it is a gas. Correct. It is a gaseous form of water, the amount of which decreases with altitude. This is correct. Why? Because when we talk about the surface of planet Earth, majority of the gases, dust particles, everything is situated very close to the surface. As you start moving higher up, that is where the density of these materials, they start reducing. And the reason for that? The reason is very plain and simple, that is the force of gravity. Due to the force of gravity, majority of the particles, they are restricted closer to the surface. Its percentage is maximum at the poles. Now this is incorrect. Even if it would have said that the amount of water vapor is high at poles, still you could have some amount of confusion within yourself. But here it is saying the percentage is maximum at the region of the poles. That is incorrect. Anyways, we do know that availability of water vapor reduces from equator as you move towards the region of the poles. Why? That is because in the lower latitudes in comparison, you still have events such as evaporation, transpiration, and all these are regular suppliers of vapor into the atmosphere. But that is not the case in this. So here, this is basically incorrect statement. And this is what you would have studied when you would have studied the portion of humidity. For example, you would have studied that absolute humidity reduces from equator polewards, right? And that is because the low availability and the low carrying capacity of the air. And also understand, at the region of the poles, the air is very cold. Temperature of air at the region of the poles is, temperature of air is very low. When you have very low temperature, that basically means carrying capacity of air is also low. Carrying capacity is very low. Okay, so carrying capacity means the amount of water vapor that any air parcel at a particular given temperature is able to carry. So by multiple logics, if you take a look at it, the statement is incorrect. So the correct answer is going to be A, that is 1 only, right? I hope this is again one of the easier questions. Then after that, this is about the climatic classification. Now this is where some of the candidates, they did get confused. But let us understand that even though the words are directly picked up from the NCERTs, the basic concept, annual and daily range of temperature is low. That is, variation in temperature throughout the year and variation in temperature between the day and the night time, that is low. So that means there is a consistent temperature. Consistent temperature can be observed only in 2 cases. One, if that region has got maritime air mass, right? If you have the presence of maritime air mass. Maritime air mass means when you have a lot of moisture. Moisture content is very high. So that is when you can have a kind of consistent temperature, because the water vapor will be retaining heat per se. Now, this maritime air mass can exist in any area. It can exist in the equatorial region also. When we talk about the different air masses, you have maritime equatorial as an air mass. So there you can have two possibilities. But let us take a look at the different other statements. Precipitation occurs throughout the year. Again, that means the influence of maritime air mass, very high amount of moisture presence. That means there will be very frequent rainfall. Now, this is the deciding statement, the third statement. Precipitation varies between 50 centimeter to 250 centimeter. Now here, equatorial region gets eliminated. Why? Because if in the region of equator we consider the amount of rainfall, it is generally in the range of around 250 centimeter to sometimes even 400, 500, 600 centimeter. You won't receive 50 centimeter of rainfall. So if a region is experiencing rainfall throughout the year and still manages an amount of rainfall between 50 to 250 centimeter, that means it is in higher latitude. So according to all of these statements, the correct answer is going to be the marine west coast climate, which is also referred to as the British type of climate. British type of climate. Equatorial climate, why equatorial climate won't be the answer? Many of the students have marked equatorial climate. Why it won't be the answer is because in the region of equatorial climate, while the first two statements would hold true, but in the case of the third statement, the amount of rainfall would be extraordinarily high. It won't be in the range of 50 to 250 centimeter. And it is directly, again, these three statements are directly picked up from the NCERT as it is. Again, indicating the use of NCERT as a reliable material. So the correct answer in this case is going to be D, right? In the case of humid subtropical, you don't have the condition where the range of temperature is low. In humid subtropical, you will have higher range of temperature sometimes. But when we talk about British type of climate, then during the winters around 10 degrees Celsius, 5 to 10 degrees Celsius, during the summer around 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. That is the variation, which is quite limited. Okay. Now, then moving on to the next question. Now, with reference to Coriolis force, which of the following statements is or are correct? So when we talk about Coriolis force acts because of the rotation of planet Earth. Now Coriolis force has got certain properties. It is maximum in the region of the equator, or maximum in the region of the poles, and is zero at the region of equator. Because of the Coriolis force, you will have the winds bending into the rightward direction in the northern hemisphere and leftward direction in the southern hemisphere. This Coriolis force also acts perpendicular to the direction of the pressure gradient force. If the pressure gradient force is in this direction, Coriolis force will be perpendicular, right? So here it increases with increase in wind velocity. This is correct. Stronger the wind motion, more is the Coriolis force. This is the implication that you see for the cyclones which develop in temperate areas. There the Coriolis force is very high because the wind velocity oftentimes is also higher. Then it is maximum at the poles and is absent at the equator. So here this is also correct. So the correct answer is going to be C, both 1 and 2. Why marine west coast climate is the answer of the previous question? Understand, again, please listen to this carefully. When we talk about the conditions of rainfall here, it is these conditions of rainfall which become a distinguishing factor. In equator, if you receive daily rainfall, which is basically depicted by the second statement, that would mean the amount of rainfall would be somewhere in the range of 250 centimeter to around 500 centimeter. Okay, it can happen. So that is why the amount of rainfall here is the catch in this particular case. So this is going to be the marine west coast climate as an answer. Okay. I hope this is understood. Now, then a simple question which UPSC repeated partially. On June 21 every year, which of the following latitudes experiences a sunlight of more than 12 hours? Which of the latitude experiences sunlight more than 12 hours? So on June 21, what do you have? You have the conditions of summer solstice. Summer solstice. Okay, northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun, and the position of the sun is vertically where? Position of the sun is vertically over the region of Tropic of Cancer. For example, we are approaching that date now. Even if you were to apply logic that what are the conditions that we experience now, because Tropic of Cancer passes through the center of the country, majority of the country is already experiencing the presence of sun rays for more than 12 hours. So Tropic of Cancer is where you have the position of the sun, so that will be present. Then when we consider the region of the Arctic, the region of the Arctic on the conditions of summer solstice or June solstice experiences continuous daytime. You don't have sunset. This is the question which UPSC had asked in 2019, where UPSC had said that on 21st of June, the sun does not set below the horizon in the case of the Arctic Circle. So Arctic Circle will also be the correct one. So here you have D, that is 2 and 4, right? Now, after this, isn't Coriolis force that affects winds not the other way? No. When we talk about Coriolis force, the wind movement is impacted by this. Now, the strength of the wind movement, please understand, why does Coriolis force act? Coriolis force is in action because when you consider the planet Earth, let's suppose you consider the planet Earth, different areas have different rotational speed. Right? So when a wind moves from one latitude to another latitude, that difference of speed is due to which there is a bending, right? That differential speed of rotation. Now, when the wind velocity is very high, that difference of speed is significantly exaggerated. And that is why the Coriolis force acts in greater strength. Okay? Now, that is the case of answer D in the case of question 85. Now, the next one. One of the following regions has the world's largest tropical peatland, which holds about 3 years worth of global carbon emissions from fossil fuels, and the possible destruction of which can exert detrimental effects on the global climate. Which of the following denotes that region? Now, you can consider this as a question of environment as well, because peatlands and the convention regarding peatlands has been in news in the portion of environment for the past 2 to 3 years. What do we mean by peatlands? Peatlands are areas of marshes where you have significant amount of vegetation which is submerged in that region. That is what we regard as a peatland. Now, for the conservation of peatlands, you had the Brazzaville Convention. Brazzaville Convention. Now, Brazzaville Convention was signed because of this, and here automatically by the name Brazzaville also you can come to the conclusion that it is being talked about for the Congo Basin. Amazon Basin is something where many of the candidates got confused. Again, why? Because of the global carbon emissions from fossil fuels and the fact that they can store that much. Amazon is a rainforest, but it doesn't have that great stretch of peatlands. When it comes to peatlands, it is present in the Congolese rainforest in greater amount. Okay? Please repeat the Arctic Circle point. Arctic Circle point, basically you have to understand that when we talk about the Arctic Circle, at the month of June, that is 21st of June, in June solstice, you will find that the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. So regardless of the rotations that it makes, you will always have the amount of sunlight which is received. That is why Arctic Circle during the time of the June solstice experiences a sunlight duration of more than 20 hours to 23 hours in many of the cases. That is why you will have Arctic Circle also as the correct answer. Okay? No, Rio de la Plata Basin is nowhere as large a peatland as you compare it to the Congo Basin. Congo Basin has got the largest peatland. Okay? Now, so Congo is the correct answer. Now, then the next question. Now here, the question is about the atmosphere and again the transfer of heat in the atmosphere, where you have multiple questions asked in this area. The atmosphere is heated more by incoming solar radiation than by terrestrial radiation. This is again correct. Now UPSC had asked this question previously, that is why always emphasize to take a look at the PYQs. So when we talk about the heating of the atmosphere, if let's suppose you consider this to be the surface, here when you have the incoming solar radiation, it is of high energy. Now that high energy wavelength is not trapped that much by the atmosphere. So initially the heat is transmitted by radiation, right? Now this heats the incoming shortwave solar radiation. That raises the temperature of the ground surface. Then the ground surface starts emitting long wave, that is low energy radiation. Long wave terrestrial radiation is emanated by the Earth's surface. Now because this long wave terrestrial radiation is low in energy, so that is why it is something which is trapped by the various gases, greenhouse gases, etc. So that is why here you will find that atmosphere is heated primarily by incoming solar by the terrestrial radiation rather than the incoming solar radiation. So the first statement is incorrect. Okay, the second statement. Carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the atmosphere are good absorbers of long wave radiation. This is correct. Statement 2 is correct. Statement 1 is incorrect. Statement 1 is incorrect in the sense that atmosphere is heated primarily by terrestrial radiation, not the incoming radiation. So here the statement 2, carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, they are good absorbers. They absorb the terrestrial radiation. So statement 2 is correct. So the correct answer for this is going to be D. That is, statement 1 is incorrect and statement 2 is correct. Right? Understood? Okay. Always, Priyanshu, climatology is always more important. Now, the next question, again associated with climate, about the transmission of heat. Consider the following statements here. Thickness of the atmosphere at the equator is much greater as compared to the region of the poles. So what this tells you is, if you consider the surface, the atmosphere has got an actual variation. The troposphere rather has got a variation like this. At equator, the troposphere is having a significant amount of thickness. Now why is it so? It is because of multiple reasons. One of the reasons that you can accrue is that at the region of equator, because of heating of the air, you have significant amount of convection currents which are generated. So that upward rise of air is something which is observed. Whereas at the region of the poles, you have colder conditions, so you will experience the sinking of the air, the downward motion of the convection current. So that is why at the region of the poles, the height is around 8 to 9 kilometers. Whereas in the region of equator, you will have around 16 kilometers of width. Sometimes even 18 kilometers during the summer conditions, depending upon which region you are talking about. Now, here, this is one of the reasons about the convection currents. The other reason is also because when we talk about the Earth as a rotating object, we know that Earth is not a perfect sphere. Earth is a geoid. So the centrifugal force as the earth rotates is maximum around the region of equator. It acts outwards. So that outward pull of the centrifugal force has also got some minute impact in terms of the thickness of troposphere. Other than that, you have another minor factor, and that is due to higher temperature, any state of matter undergoes expansion. Due to lower temperature, there will be slight contraction. So overall, why is troposphere thicker? 3 reasons: convection currents, centrifugal force, and expansion. Okay, so thickness of troposphere at the equator is much greater as compared to the poles. This is correct. At the equator, heat is transported to great heights by strong convection currents. This is also correct. So here, both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, and statement 2 explains the statement 1. Okay, understood? Now, then the next question. Consider the following: pyroclastic debris, ash and dust, nitrogen compounds, and sulfur compounds. How many of the above are products of volcanic eruption? So here you will see that ideally many of the times we feel that nitrogen is not released to that extent, but even in the larger scale of the volcanic eruptions, all of them. So pyroclastic debris is what is cleared off when the molten materials, they blast through the jammed volcanic neck, and then ash and dust, they are also emanated, forming a very large ash cloud which causes a lot of lightning. Along with that, nitrogen compounds, nitrous oxide, nitrogen dioxide also in small amounts are released, and sulfur compounds are also released. It is the release of this sulfur compound which provides cooling in that area, because these sulfur compounds, when they are released, they form those tiny minute aerosols, brighter aerosols, and those particular aerosols, they are reflective in nature. That is why in environment, when you would have studied about geoengineering, you would have studied about it, that creation of artificial volcanic conditions to provide the global cooling. So all of these are actually products of volcanic eruption, right? So the correct answer is D. Okay, pyroclastic debris is basically when you have, let's suppose, when you consider this as a cone, let's suppose a cinder cone eruption itself. Now it will have the volcanic neck, right, connecting it to the magma chamber. Now from the past eruption, it would have happened that the materials have been solidified. Now when the new molten materials along with the gases, they are exerting the pressure, then all these solidified materials are released with a bang. That is what we refer to as pyroclastic debris. So here the correct answer is D, right? Now, this is again a question which UPSC has repeated, that is, which of the following is or are correct inference or inferences from isothermal maps in the month of January? Now, when we talk about the isothermal maps during the month of January, you have to understand that during the month of January, anyways, during the month of January, June, July, any of the time, this question is driven from one basic principle, that is heating of land and water. Heating of land and water. Now, during the winter months, when we talk about the winter months, in the winter months, what do we experience? We basically experience that land is much colder. Why? Because all the heat on the land surface is restricted to the top few centimeters and top few inches itself. Whereas in the case of water, that heat is distributed. So during the winter, when overall the region loses heat, land will be able to lose heat much faster, much quicker. So that is why during winter, land is colder. Oceans are warmer. Oceans are warmer. Okay, so here if you consider a land area, let's suppose another land area here, let's suppose, right, in between you have ocean. Now if in this region you have a temperature of, let's suppose, -10 degrees Celsius. Now in the ocean, in order to attain a temperature of -10, you will have to go closer to the poles. At this region, you will have maybe 0, maybe 5 degrees Celsius. So you will have to go closer to the poles in order to achieve -10 degrees Celsius. So that is why when you draw the isotherm, it will bend northwards, right? And again, over the continent, it will come southwards. So isotherms deviate to the north over the ocean and to the south over the continent because of this basic concept. The presence of cold ocean currents, Gulf Stream and North Atlantic Drift, make the North Atlantic Ocean colder and isotherms bend towards north. Now these are warm ocean currents in general. It is the presence of these warm ocean currents due to which the lower temperature is experienced much closer to the poles. If there would have been cold ocean currents, then lower temperature would have been received closer to the lower latitudes itself. Right? So the second statement is incorrect because Gulf Stream, North Atlantic Drift, they are warm ocean currents, not the cold ocean currents. So here, which of these are correct? So basically, you will have A, that is one only, that is the correct answer, right? Yes, we have covered it in Conquer Prelims. Almost all the questions which we are seeing right now, that we have covered, and you would vouch for that if you have covered the courses. Now, moving on to the next question. Which of the following countries are well known as the 2 largest cocoa producers in the world? This is the only factual question for geography that UPSC had to throw at you this year. But here, when we talk about cocoa, here also you have to understand the conditions for cocoa is slight amount of rainfall and presence of moisture also is required. Here the answer is going to be C, that is Ivory Coast or Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana. These are the areas which have the maximum amount of cocoa production. Okay. Now, moving on to the next question. With reference to the Himalayan rivers joining Ganga downstream of Prayagraj from west to east, which of the following sequences is correct? Now, this was a kind of a full toss that UPSC threw at you because when it comes to rivers and tributaries, UPSC has sometimes been very mischievous in the sense that it has asked variety of different questions. When you talk about the flow of river Ganga, basically, if you talk about the tributaries, one of the first left bank tributaries to join is Ram Ganga. Ram Ganga. After that, you have river Gomti. Gomti is the one which joins it. Then you have the antecedent river in the form of Ghagra. Then after that you have Gandak and Kosi joining in Bihar. Kosi is amongst the easternmost tributary, but you have a tributary to the east of Kosi as well, that is river Mahananda, which forms the boundary between Bengal and Bihar. So here the correct sequence is going to be B, that is Gomti, Ghagra, Gandak and Kosi. Okay. Now, here the key area to catch was the presence of Kosi and the presence of Gomti. If you would know that Ghagra and Gandak, they end up joining in the region of Bihar. So automatically you would think that Ghagra is not going to be the westernmost. Okay. No national park or wildlife sanctuaries or protected areas was asked. That is good news. That also tells you to focus on the basics rather than running after the facts, right? Now, consider the following statements. Now, this is a different question that UPSC has thrown at you this year, which you will also find in the subsequent other 2 questions. Generally, in a statement-based question, UPSC has got a habit of asking 2 of the statements. Here, you will find that UPSC has asked you 3 statements. Okay. So, statement 1, rainfall is one of the reasons of weathering of rocks. Absolutely correct. There is no doubt in that. Rainfall can cause physical weathering. Rainfall can cause chemical weathering as well, right? Now, rainwater contains carbon dioxide in solution. This is also actually correct. It is the carbon dioxide which is present in the air that is sometimes dissolved in the rainwater, and thereby the rainwater forms what is known as carbonic acid. Carbonic acid. Now that carbonic acid also goes for the process of carbonation, and by the process of carbonation it undertakes what we refer to as chemical weathering, where it starts dissolving the materials. It lowers the pH of rainwater. It makes the rainwater slightly acidic, facilitating chemical weathering of the rocks. Now, statement 3, rainwater contains atmospheric oxygen dissolved in it. That is also correct. This is the reason why on exposure to rainfall, you have the process of oxidation, which is generally observed. So here you will have the correct answer as both statement 2 and 3 are correct, and both of them explain statement 1. Because this can also cause weathering by the process of oxidation, right? This can also cause weathering by the formation of carbonic acid, and eventually it is all a part of rainfall. So the correct answer in this case is going to be A, right? Now, moving on to the next question. This question is about match the following. Now here again understand, UPSC has played a trick. Easiest way to confuse the candidates is give them the name of easy waterfalls and the rivers, and they will take a look into this as well. But UPSC has played with the region as well. So if you consider this, Dhuadhar Falls. Dhuadhar Falls are formed on river Narmada. Yes, that is correct. But is the region or is Dhuadhar Falls present in the region of Malwa? The answer is no. Malwa is situated in the region of western part of Madhya Pradesh, whereas this Dhuadhar Falls in the region of Jabalpur is in the Kushal region. It is in the eastern part of Madhya Pradesh. So this one is incorrectly matched. Okay. Then you have Hunru Falls. Hunru Falls, is it situated in the region of Chota Nagpur? Yes. In the region around the area of Ranchi Plateau, within the Chota Nagpur Plateau, you have the presence of Hunru Falls, and it is on the river Subarnarekha. So this one is correctly matched. Then Garsopa Falls. Garsopa Falls, is it, or the Jog Falls, is it present in the region of Western Ghats? Absolutely yes. Is it on the river Netravati though? No. It is on river Shravati. So here, this is again incorrect. So how many of the above rows the information is correctly matched? The answer is going to be A. That is only 1. So here, the correct answer is going to be A. Okay, many of the students again have reached out that they have marked B because they have ignored the portion of Malwa. Okay, now moving on to the next question, the last question for the subject of geography, and this was again something that if you have had the basic idea of geomorphology, you can get it correct. It is not a factual question, it is a very, very logical question. So you have the region, then other than the region, the name of the mountain range, and also the type of mountain. So when we talk about, let's suppose, Central Asia, now Vosges, where are Vosges situated? Vosges are basically situated in the region of Europe. It is not situated in the region of Central Asia. And Vosges are basically the type of block mountains that you have. It is not the case of a fold mountain. So here you will find that the first statement basically is incorrect. The first matching is incorrect. Vosges is not situated in Central Asia and it is not a fold mountain. Then after that, so this is incorrect. Okay. Then we consider Alps. Alps is situated in Europe, that is correct, but is it a block mountain? No, it is a fold mountain. So this is incorrect. Then after that, North America, Appalachians. Appalachians which are situated in the eastern part of US and the eastern part of North America. These Appalachians are a fold mountain which have been created long time in the past before the formation of Atlantic, when you had the region of North America colliding with the region of Europe. It was at that point of time when Appalachians and Hercynian groups of mountain in the Scottish Highlands were created. Remember, this was one of the evidences pointed out by Alfred Wagner to substantiate his continental drift theory. So this is basically correctly matched. Then South America, Andes. Are Andes fold mountains? Yes. Andes are again fold mountains formed because of oceanic continental convergence. So this is also a fold mountain. So basically you had 3 fold mountains and 1 block mountain in this match the following, but out of these only 3 and 4 are correctly matched. So this gives you a new kind of question pattern which UPSC has brought forward. This year it has been used in the portion of geography, but next year it can always be used in areas of government schemes, in areas of environment ecology as well. So here the correct answer is going to be B, that is only 2. Now, then moving on to the questions associated with environment. Overall, in the portion of geography, you would have seen that the 16 questions which have appeared, if you would have covered the basics, easily out of these 16, 14 questions you could get it correct. Maybe the question of the aspect of cocoa production, that can be put under slightly factual aspect, but other than that you should have gotten it correct. So this was one of the easy papers of geography that UPSC threw at you. Now coming to the portion of environment where you had the presence of around 13 to 14 questions, let us start the discussion of this portion of environment. So here, when we take a look at it, the first question. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. The European Parliament approved the Net Zero Industry Act recently. That is correct. Now, European Parliament did approve this. So here, I hope many of you have gotten that correct, basically. So this is correct. This was a part of the current affairs as well. Now, the European Union intends to achieve carbon neutrality by 2040 and therefore aims to develop all of its own clean technologies by that time. While the remaining of the statement is correct, it is 2040, which is the contentious one. Ever since the Paris Agreement, European Union has talked about advancing its net zero goal, but its net zero goal stays at 2050. India's net zero goal is 2070. So European Union's net zero goal is 2050, not 2040. So this statement is incorrect. So here you will find that statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. So C is the correct answer. I hope you have done it correct. I hope that the marking is done in a correct manner. Now, then moving on to the next question. According to Environmental Protection Agency, this is an agency of the US government, which one of the following is the largest source of sulfur dioxide emissions? Now here basically, when we talk about sulfur dioxide emissions, volcanic eruptions are one of those, then you have industrial exhausts are one of those, then you have the vehicular emissions also by burning of fossil fuels. But then the largest source of the release of emission is basically power plants which use the fossil fuels. Okay, so the correct answer in this case is going to be D. Now, then the next question. Consider the following materials: agricultural residues, corn grains, wastewater treatment sludge, and wood mill waste. Which of the above can be used as feedstock for producing sustainable aviation fuel? Now here, when we talk about aviation fuel, all of them can be used in order to produce that biofuel, right? Because first generation or second generation, both of them can be used in order to produce that aviation fuel. So here the correct answer is straightforward, going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Even if you would have applied your normal kind of a guesswork or a normal kind of a deduction, you would have arrived at it. Because understand, for any of the statements to be incorrect, you have to apply logic why that can't be used to produce biofuel. So here C is the correct answer. All of them can be used to produce aviation fuel, and they are used to produce aviation fuel as well. Now, question 71. Now the organisms cicada, froghopper, and pond skater, they are what? All of these are basically the species of insects, all of them, right? It was the pond skater which was in news over the past year, but all of them, they are the various varieties of insects basically. Now the name froghopper and pond skater also gives way that it cannot be a kind of, when we talk about a hopper, generally it is not a species of a fish or a species of a reptile. But this is a kind of a minute way of elimination. Either you knew it or you didn't know it, but even by the logical guesswork, you could arrive at insect. So this again I would put under the category of moderate. I won't put it under the difficult category. Now, consider the following statements. Many chewing gums found in the market are considered a source of environmental pollution. This statement is correct. Now, statement 2, many chewing gums contain plastic as a gum base. That is why they are considered to be a source of environmental pollution. So this is also correct, right? So they have the presence of compounds such as polyvinyl acetate. The chewing gums, many of them have the base is polyvinyl acetate. It is what keeps that chewability maintained. Now this polyvinyl acetate is nothing but a kind of a plastic. That is why when you throw chewing gums as well, they don't degrade easily. They get converted, many of the chewing gums, they get converted into microplastics and micro beads, right? So here, statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, and statement 2 explains statement 1 correctly well, ably well. So here, the answer is going to be A. Now, after that, the next question. This is a match the following question about the pairs of various organisms, where they are found. Now, when we talk about the organism Indri, Indri is a kind of a lemur which you find in the region of Madagascar. Okay, in the region of Madagascar, you have these very unique species of lemurs not to be found in many other parts of the world, right? So Brazil is incorrectly matched. Now, when we talk about elks, elks are high altitude organisms. These are to be found either in higher latitudes. They are found in the region of northern part of North America, in many parts of northern Eurasian continent, but not in the region of the tropics and equatorial region. So this is again incorrectly matched. Then Bonobo, a kind of the species of apes. Now this bonobo is to be found in the region of Congo, the region of Congo rainforests. Okay, not in the region of Madagascar. So here, how many of the pairs given above are correctly matched? The answer is D, that is none of the above. Now, before you start panicking that how are we supposed to get these questions correct, remember, in our previous interactions about environment, I had suggested to you that the type of questions that UPSC is asking nowadays from the portion of the animals and how do the animals adapt in certain areas, the best source is the docuseries and the documentaries which are available. So those of you preparing for the next year as well, I would again suggest you that's something that I have done multiple times in the past, that do take a look into the areas when we talk about the documentaries such as Our Planet, Life on Earth. These are the sources from which, for example, last year UPSC had picked questions about orangutans, how they pick up insects using the sticks. It was also from those docuseries. It had asked the question about honeybee fluttering its wings. It was also from those docuseries. And here you have the question regarding the lions also, which is again taken from those particular. So you have to increase and expand your sources of information, but watching a docuseries cannot be that burdensome. So good news. So here the correct answer is going to be D. Then the next one. Consider the following statements. Lions do not have a particular breeding season. This is correct. They do not have a particular breeding season. They can basically breed multiple times in a year, and that is where the litter grows. So unlike most other big cats, cheetahs do not roar. Cheetahs, they belong to the category of purring cats. They purr and they don't roar, right? So this is also correct. Unlike male lions, male leopards do not proclaim their territory by scent marking. Almost all the big cats that are present, all of them, they do that scent marking and they mark and demarcate their own territory. So this is basically incorrect. So here, which of the statements given above are correct? You will have the correct answer to be A, that is 1 and 2 only. Okay? Now, then the next question. Which one of the following shows a unique relationship with an insect that has co-evolved with it, and that is the only insect that can pollinate this tree? Now, this was a question out in the randomness. This was a factual question, so this is something either you know or you don't know about it. So here the correct answer is fig. Figs are basically pollinated by the species of wasps. Okay, so here the correct answer is going to be A, that is fig, right? When we talk about sandalwood, the pollination is done by birds. When we talk about the trees like maua and even silk cotton, pollination is generally done by birds. It is in the case of the figs where the insect or the wasp species, they co-evolve with the development of the figs as well. Okay, now consider the following: butterflies, fish and frogs. How many of the above have poisonous species among them? The answer is C, all of them. You will have, for example, frogs, poison dart frogs are there. You have puffer fish, which is also considered poisonous, and same is the case with butterflies as well. So all of them within themselves have the species which are considered poisonous. Next one. Consider the following. How many of the above trees are actually native to India, endemic? So here, when we talk about cashew, is cashew native to India? No. Cashew is to be found primarily in the region of South America. Okay, it is native to that region. It has been introduced in India by the various Europeans who came over, and plantation cultivation was carried out. So cashew is not native to India. Papaya is not also a native Indian fruit. It is a fruit of Latin America and Central Americas. So Latin and Central Americas. Okay, but this does not mean, guys, that you start learning all the various different trees where they are endemic to. That is not how you can do the preparation. This is about a question associated with red sanders, and even during the time of history you would have studied how cashews, tomatoes, etc. were introduced. So multifaceted sources of information can be utilized here. Red sanders, it is native to the region of Andhra Pradesh in the Sheshachalam area, and it is endemic to the region of India. Red sanders we had covered multiple times in various different programs, Conquer Prelims Plus courses, everywhere we had covered this. So here the correct answer is going to be A, that is only 1. Now the next one, with reference to perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances that are used in making many consumer products, consider the following statements. Now when we say PFAS, these are also what are referred to as forever chemicals. Now these forever chemicals have been a part of our day-to-day life for almost a century now. When you talk about the packaging materials of various food items to the utilities, cosmetics, everywhere you will find this, and they don't degrade easily. They stay in the environment for a long time, creating the issue of biomagnification and bioaccumulation. So that is why these perfluoroalkyl chemicals, they are quite dangerous, right? They impact the entirety of the food chain. So when we talk about the PFAS, they are found to be widespread in drinking water, food and food packaging materials as well. Correct. Because of the utility, they make the materials more durable. They are also used as solvents in many of the cases. Now they are not easily degraded in the environment. That is also correct. Now persistent exposure to PFAS can lead to bioaccumulation in the animal bodies. That is correct. Eventually it can lead to sometimes biomagnification also happening, but the prime contact will develop bioaccumulation. So here all the three, that is 1, 2 and 3 are the correct answer. Now then consider the following. Carabid beetles, centipedes, flies, termites and wasps. Then parasitoid species are found in how many of the above kind of organisms? This means that amongst these organisms, how many of them can have parasites within them? So here the correct answer is going to be D, that is all five. All five of them will have the parasite species within them. Okay, so that is the correct. This was again very factual. You got it or you didn't get it. You either knew it or you didn't know it. Okay, but that is always the case with environment. Environment this time also has taken that path, but you don't have to be perturbed or worried by it at all. Now coming to the last question for the portion of environment, and this is about the Indian flying fox. Now Indian flying fox is a species of bat. Now why was this in news? This was in news because of the spread of the Nipah virus. Now this Indian flying fox feeds on the fruits, right? And basically that is why you will find them to be present in the region of the forested areas, within the areas of the rocks, etc., and they feed on the fruits. But as deforestation and land degradation is happening, that is when they are moving into the urban areas where they are consuming some fruits. They are then transmitting the virus into the fruits, and those fruits when consumed by the humans, that is one of the medium for the Nipah virus spread. Nipah virus was in significant news last year where we had covered the portion of the Indian flying fox as well. So here the Indian flying fox is placed under the vermin category in the Wildlife Act 1972. The answer is correct. Now Indian flying fox feeds on the blood of other animals. This is incorrect. Right? So here the statement 2 is incorrect. It feeds on fruits, various different types of fruits. So here basically what is the correct answer? It is going to be C, that is statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. Okay? That is the correct answer. So these were the questions for the portion of geography and environment ecology. Overall, in this entire portion, you had around 30 questions, 16 from geography, around 14 from the portion of environment ecology. Out of the 16 questions of geography, easily, if you had applied the concepts and if you have been attending the sessions and attentive in the sessions, you should have got 14 out of them correct. And out of the 14 questions of environment, again, if you have followed the current affairs, here current affairs were very vital. Out of the 14 of the current affairs, you could have got easily around 7 to 9 correct. Rest were factual, depending upon how the logical analysis comes into place. So this definitely puts this time's paper into the easy to moderate category. And that is where for the portion of geography you will not find any of the controversial questions. So is the case with the portion of environment ecology, which is also a fresh change from previous years. This also tells those of you who are going to attempt the exam next year that rather than running after facts, understand what to study, stick to the basics, get your concepts repeated again and again, and no reason why you can't succeed in this examination. Okay, so now we come to the portion of history which shall be discussed by Abhishek sir. I hope that you have had a good exam, you have had a good attempt, but regardless of whatsoever is the case, in case you are getting less marks, don't worry about it. Take up weeks of break, realize, analyze where did you go wrong, where were the contents wrong, and immediately jump into the preparation. And in case you are getting around 95, 100 and more, or around 90 to 95 and plus, immediately jump into the preparation for the mains exam without further delay. So all the best going ahead in the future. Thank you. And now I'll hand it over to Abhishek sir.
Welcome back. So we are going to discuss the history questions from the 2024 paper. And if we talk about history generally, if we analyze the questions itself, there is something to rejoice, and there's also a little bit of what we call as quiz type questions which have come in the examination. For modern India, it is generally quite good. The questions are conceptual, can be understood just by having an understanding of the subject itself. There have been questions of post-independence, 2 questions. That way is quite interesting, a new addition. This is the bouncer in history with regards to what UPSC has done. Ancient, what they've done is they've mixed up with art and culture also, and they have given art and culture questions separately also. So the art and culture separate are quite easy. The ones which are with the ancient and art and culture are a little bit difficult. These are the 5 questions which you could have avoided in history itself. Out of the 12 questions which have come, 7 are very good, can be doable with basic understanding itself, but these 5 are actually quite difficult in that regard. Now, there is no medieval India. This is another change which they've done, because what has happened is that previously they were asking questions on Mongols. They've asked them even in 2022 the Fanam question and the Sayyids, and now there is a silence on medieval. So ancient, art and culture, mixed questions. Art and culture was quite good that way, very easy, tangible, intangible. Modern India again easy, post-independence easy. So the smart candidate, the candidate who's going to clear this examination, would have actually left these questions and not take a negative. On the other hand, modern India, post-independence, art and culture has done its job in the larger context. So let's look at the questions. First question, this is a post-independence question, which is party, its leader. Bharatiya Jana Sangh, Socialist Party, Congress for Democracy, the Swatantra Party, Dr. Shyam Shankar Mukherjee, C. Rajagopalachari, Jagjeevan Ram, Acharya Narendra Dev. Ironically, I was just discussing this whole concept in class yesterday itself. What they've done is, the answer here is 2 only, wherein they've reversed 2 of the leaders. So, Bharatiya Jana Sangh and Congress for Democracy is correct. Shyam Prasad Mukherjee and Jagjeevan Ram, and they have reversed these 2. We were discussing the Socialist Party yesterday in the plus class itself, and Acharya Narendra Dev is the leader of the Socialist Party, and Swatantra Party was C. Rajagopalachari or Rajaji. So we have only 2 correctly matched and 2 are incorrectly matched. These are the 2 incorrectly matched ones, and these are the 2 correctly matched ones. Thereafter, again a very simple, straightforward question out of post-independence, also intersects with polity in that regard, wherein you have who was the provisional president of the Constituent Assembly before Dr. Rajendra Prasad took over. Rajaji, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, T.T. Krishnamachari or Sachidanand Sinha. Now again, if you know that on December 11th, 1946, it was Dr. Rajendra Prasad who took over. It was Sachidanand Sinha who basically was the interim president in that regard, from the formation of the interim government to Dr. Rajendra Prasad becoming the president and later the president of the Republic also on December 11, 1946. So before December 11, 1946, it is Sachidanand Sinha. Thereafter, it is Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Fairly easy question. I hope that you got these 2 correct. Thereafter, this is a tricky question. Why? Because if your understanding of the 1919 Act is not good, you will not be able to answer this question, because 1919 Act actually decides if you understand this question or not. See, with reference to Government of India Act 1935, and you need to have an understanding of what is called hierarchy, consider the following statements. It provided for the establishment of an all India federation based on the union of the British Indian provinces and princely states. This statement is totally correct. All India federation was proposed but never came into existence. Now with this, we can pick up one thing, which is that it is talking about counterfactual things, which is this all India federation never came into being, but it is saying that All India Federation was provided for establishment through this act. Now, based on this logic, then you have defense and foreign affairs were kept under the control of federal legislature. Now, here,
The catch is that if it takes into consideration that hierarchy was proposed at the center and there was provincial autonomy wherein the hierarchy concept was removed from the provinces, if this is applied on this statement is incorrect. However, if this point is not applied on it, then it is correct. We will go with the aspect that because we are going with this as correct, therefore this is also correct, which is hierarchy was proposed. Why? See, because if hierarchy is taken into consideration at center, it would become the Viceroy, which is Governor General of India and Viceroy, and his Executive Council, and the what we call Central Legislative Assembly and Council of State. Bicameralism at the center. Now, if hierarchy is proposed, then this would have become reserved and this would have become transferred. And if we know the British very, very well, and it is written in the Government of India Act itself that if this is going to be the structure, defense and foreign affairs would go to the reserved subjects. If it is going towards the reserved subjects, then the Executive Council would have been involved, not the federal legislature. So this statement actually is incorrect and the answer becomes A, but it is based on an assumption. The assumption is because this is All India Federation proposed, so hierarchy proposed. Under hierarchy proposed, therefore the control of the federal legislation was not there over, this is the federal legislation, this was not over a subject like defense and foreign affairs. This is where you have to understand the question. The depth of the question is a little bit tricky here, because if I don't take that into consideration and there is no hierarchy at center, then this statement is correct. So answer could be A and C, but we will go with A because that actually makes sense vis-a-vis how the question has been framed. There's one more question which has been done like this, which is the Rayatwari and the Cornwallis revenue question. Again, the language of the question is problematic, so we will go with A. However, we would have to see the official answer key. What is the logic which UPSC is applied? So here, defense and foreign affairs, this is a very, very vague statement. Okay. Now we go into the factual ones, which you either know or you don't know. So, which one of the following is a work attributed to the playwright Bhasa? Now, here the answer is C. And there is no way you can come to the answer without knowing about Bhasa, a very important playwright before Kalidasa, because in Kalidasa, his Malvika Agnimitram actually talks about Bhasa. So Kalidas in Malvika Agnimitram refers to him, but that still would not give you the answer. Answer here is Madhyama Vyogya. So C is the answer of question number 33. Now this is again a very tricky question. These are the two random questions. If you have left 33 and 34 in set C, then it's sorted for you, because these are questions you should not attempt if you have no idea. Sanghabhuti, an Indian Buddhist monk who traveled to China at the end of 4th century AD or CE, was the author of a commentary on. Now, Sanghabhuti is a very important Buddhist monk who is from Kashmir, and he travels to China and is attributed to have translated a lot of Buddhist texts, Pali and Prakrit texts, into Chinese or Mandarin. And therefore, the answer here is again C, because of the fact that he had written a comment of the Vinay Pitaka, and within Vinay Pitaka he had gone to specifically the Sarvastivada Vinaya. Again, this is a question which basically I can't call ancient, neither can I call this ancient India, because both go into art and culture. But because they're based on a very important understanding of ancient India, that is the problem, and that is where 33 and 34 are difficult questions. That was ancient India or ancient Indian art and culture were difficult. Thereafter, this is one of the easiest. I hope 35 everybody got correct. Consider the following properties included in the World Heritage List released by the UNESCO. Shantiniketan, Rani Ki Vav, Sacred Assemblage of the Hoysalas, the Mahabodhi Temple Complex at Bodh Gaya. Now, if you read till this much, you will get this answer incorrect. It says, above properties were included in 2023, which is the latest edition in that regard. Therein, it becomes easy. Shantiniketan and Hoysala, only two have been added. All of them are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. We've discussed this in the morning also at 12 p.m. All of them are. It's about 2023. Remember one more very interesting point, that we've discussed all of this in Conquer Prelims also. We discussed it in what we call as the static portion and in the current affairs. You can go to the second session of Conquer Prelims and you'll find reference to both. And ironically, if you've gone through the list, we have another important question of intangible heritage in the end, which is again out of Conquer Prelims. Okay. Question number 44. This is the third question which you leave if you have no idea about epithets or titles. With reference to ancient India, Gautam Buddha was generally known of which of the following epithets? He has 10 epithets. Ironically, what UPSC has done, they have actually taken out one which is technically not an epithet but is used quite a lot, which is, see, Thagata is an epithet which is used for Gautam Buddha, the one who came and the one who's gone, and this is in the Pali Pantheon. In the Pali Pantheon, he is called Thagata, who has come and will go. However, this is obviously not an epithet, you would not know, but this is the problematic one, which is the second one. Shakya Muni. See, Buddha Shakya Muni is a title and a what we call as prefix or suffix which was used in Mahayanic Buddhism quite a lot. In Mahayanic Buddhism quite a lot. And therefore with Mahayanic Buddhist understanding, this also is there. See, if the question had 3 only as the option, then it would again become a tricky question, because here it becomes 2 and 3, and somehow that concept of elimination is back also in that regard. Finally, in that sense, in certain questions they've used that only 1, only 2, only 3 concept, but here we can use elimination. The idea is if 3 only would have been there, then the answer would have been 3 only, because if you will go to any what we call as authentic source and even the Buddhist philosophy, epithets there are only 10. Out of it, Shakyamuni is not one of the epithets. So because we are in dearth of a question where the options are not satisfactory, the idea is that, Rohit, I'll do that in the end, don't worry. I'll tell you what is the issue with the second statement of 1935 Government of India Act. I'll do that once I reach the end. Now, you have considered the following information. This is again the next tricky question. This is the fourth in that regard, which if you've taken, okay. If you've not attempted it, okay. See, Chandraketu Gad, Inamgaon, Mangadu, Sahil Hundam, Odisha, Maharashtra, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, trading port town, Chalcolithic site, megalithic site, rock cut cave. Now the problem is, in this type of question, you can't really expect elimination, because though there is something, the idea is there are 2 different variables which you have to check. So, Chandraketu Gad, Odisha, trading port town. It is in West Bengal and it is actually landlocked. So therefore this one becomes incorrect. If you know that, you can eliminate 2 and then you get 2 and 3, 3 and 4. Now, if you know your basic history, you would know that there's a non-Harappan Chalcolithic site which is in Maharashtra, which is called Inamgaon. So it has to be 2 has to be correct. So therefore you get 2 and 3 as correct, and this is also correct because yes, it is in Kerala, a megalithic site. Ironically, in this much is okay. It is not rock cut caves, it is stupas. That is why I am saying that this question is difficult, because in one the state is wrong, the other one the description is wrong. It has given too much of variability and determinants to come to the answer. Therefore, if you did not get this, it's okay. But the answer is B, perfectly fine if you're able to come to that. As it is, you would have to choose a question in which 2 was there were only A and B. And if you were able to eliminate 1, then automatically, this is again a very known site in that regard. The other 2, 3 and 4 aren't. Now, question number 46. This one is a little bit tricky, but can be understood if you know the basic medieval timeline. Therein this question is what we call as early modern period in that regard. Who of the following rulers of medieval India gave permission to the Portuguese to build a fort at Bhatkal? Now, Krishnadev Raya, Narasimha Sullava, Muhammad Shah III, Yusuf Adil Shah. Now, if you know basic Portuguese history, you would know that Portuguese presence is from 1488 at the Cape of Good Hope. From 1498 onwards, we believe that the Portuguese are there. Their expansion starts after 1500. It is after 1503, 1505 that they actually start to establish forts. The first one being, permanent one being in the Kochi sector. Now, this means that the ruler should have been in the same period in that regard. Therefore, Narasimha Sulva gets eliminated because the concept itself is that he dies in 1491. He dies in 1491. Thereafter, the problem with the next one is that he also is dead by 1462. And Yusuf Adil Shah, the Bhatkal port which is in the Karnataka sector, is not corresponding to where Yusuf Adil Shah used to rule, and the answer comes to Krishnadeva Raya. This is the answer. Again, a factual question. Can't really do anything about this. If you can't get the answer, it's okay. It's okay, but A is the answer for this, Krishnadeva Raya. Question number 47. This is the other problematic question, wherein the language is quite problematic. So, with reference to, you skipped it, that is a good point. With reference to revenue collection by Cornwallis, consider the following statement. Now, what they've done is, they've confused the aspirant. They're talking about Cornwallis, and then they're talking about Rayatwari settlement. Under the Rayatwari settlement of revenue collection, the peasants were exempted from revenue payment in case of bad harvest and natural calamities. Under the permanent settlement in Bengal, if the zamindar failed to pay his revenue to the state on or before the fixed date, he would be removed from his zamindari. This everybody knows is correct because this is called the sunset law. This is called the sunset law. You will lose your zamindari, it will be auctioned off to someone else. So this is correct. Now this, the problem is, permanent settlement, Cornwallis go together. But Rayatwari settlement is introduced in the early 19th century, 1800 onwards. However, Cornwallis is already gone in 1794. So therefore, how do we correspond it? That ways, there is also one more issue in this statement. If you know this, automatically it becomes incorrect because it's talking about Cornwallis and then Rayatwari. But if UPSC is still playing a game, Rayatwari initially did not give any form of remission on bad harvest. It is only in the late, what we call as 19th century, by 1870, 1900, the impact of the nationalists, there will be a change in understanding. Here it becomes only 2. So this automatically is incorrect because it is not corresponding. So we don't even need to read this. If this was permanent, then it would be a trickier question because then you have to understand. As it is, we know British mentality. They would never give any form of concession to the peasants initially in the Company Raj period itself. Okay. This one, if you know English literature or vocabulary is good, you will automatically get the answer. It says, there are no parables in Upanishads. Upanishads were composed earlier than the Puranas. Now the second statement is obviously correct, which is Upanishads were composed earlier because Upanishads are part of what are called the Vedanta. So they're part of the Vedic corpus, Shruti literature, and therefore it has to be before the Smriti literature itself. Now here the problem is, yes, Vamsi is parables. Parables means spiritual lessons. Now, I think we all can be very, very clear that Upanishads is the philosophy of the Vedas, and therefore it can't be that parables would not be in the Upanishads itself, whereas they were trying to give a lesson. So this is incorrect. Answer becomes 2 only. Upanishads were composed earlier than the Puranas. However, parables were there, obviously, because it is a philosophical text, talks about the Rig Veda and its philosophy. Therefore, first statement is incorrect. And again, the concept can be that there is a extreme word here. So it could be in that regard problematic. Okay. Question number 50, and then I'll discuss that point. Which one of the following was the latest inclusion in the Intangible Heritage List of UNESCO? It's a freebie. This is the 7th question which you can get 14 marks out of history, clear the cutoff, and then go into mains preparation. Here it is very simple. Garba. They've given Durga Puja to put you off, but actually it was first Kumbh Mela, then Durga Puja, then Garba, which has been. Chhaw is a very old one, but they've actually given all 3 very recent ones, so to basically put you off, and the answer is C. Now, before I end the session, one of you asked me that what is the issue with the Government of India? See, 1919 Act, Government of India, says what is called as hierarchy. Hierarchy is the concept of legislative jurisdictional differentiation, which is that there was the imperial list and there was the provincial list, and the provincial list was further divided into reserved and transferred. The idea was that as there is more representative government, more legislative councils have been added, or even provincial legislative assemblies are there, the British can't give power too much to the Indian dominated provincial legislative assemblies or councils. So what they did was they created reserved and transferred. All important what we call as subjects were added to reserved, and all useless subjects that ways were added to transferred. And the idea was reserved, the governor and his executive council is going to take a call, executives legislating, and the governor and the provincial legislative council is going to take a call on transferred. Now this logic was extended to in Government of India Act 1935 to center. However, it was so confusing as it is, the Simon Commission also and the first and second roundtable conference, third roundtable conference, they were very clear that hierarchy is too confusing. And therefore, though it was proposed, nobody applied it. This was not applied. However, in that question, because we are assuming that All India Federation was in a way proposed, and this is also proposed, and the question is about proposed understanding. Therefore, if Government of India Act 1935 would have had hierarchy in center, the power would have been Governor General of India and Viceroy, Executive Council, and thereafter Central Legislative Assembly and Council of State. Now they would have then what they have done, they would have created reserved and then would have created the concept of transferred. And if that is the case, and we are presuming that is the case, then the most important foreign relations defense would never have been in the executive, never have been in the Council of State or the Central Legislative Assembly. It would have been in the Executive Council. Therefore, that is why the statement is incorrect. So with this, I will hand it over to Chethan sir. He will take the questions of international relations. I hope 7 to 8 questions of history which were manageable were done by you, and you will be able to manage it properly. All the best, and see you in the next session.
Hello and welcome to Unacademy. welcome to the complete paper analysis of Prelims 2024. So now I'll be taking up the section on international relations and as well as internal security. I'm sure many of you would have felt that the question paper was relatively easy compared to the last 2 years, and that assessment is absolutely right. Now, if you look at international relations, as always, the section has been very important in the last few years. In the last couple of years, we got around 12 to 14 questions. This year as well, we have got 11 questions from international relations. And all these questions are driven by current affairs. This again highlights the importance of current affairs as far as prelims question paper number 1 is concerned. So a lot of questions from current affairs, some of them were very simple, factual, but some of them required an in-depth understanding. As in, if you don't know all the facts, it might become a little difficult or relatively challenging to answer those questions. But what is really interesting this time is that we had 3 questions from internal security as well. Generally, internal security is a mains-oriented subject. But I've always been telling my students to not neglect internal security because the topics are such that there can be prelims questions asked from internal security as well. And it has happened this time. Since internal security is also driven by current affairs, there can be questions asked from here, and we have got 3 questions. So let's discuss all these questions one by one. And before that, we have a very important announcement. As part of Iconic subscription for the Unacademy online classroom program, we are launching a new feature. We are bringing in AI, artificial intelligence, to help you scale up your preparation. This AI tool, which will become part of your Iconic subscription very soon, it will help you revise the topics in the shortest time possible. Let's say a video of 1 hour or 1.5 hours. It will be compressed into a short summary through this AI tool so that you can quickly revise the topics in 5 to 10 minutes. This AI tool will also help you in your answer evaluation. Because you might have seen, whenever you send your answers to other institutions for evaluation, they might take 7 days or 10 days to get you a feedback. So to bring down this feedback time and ensure that Unacademy stands out and helps the students in the best possible manner, this AI tool is being deployed and it will provide you immediate feedback on your answers. Of course, there will be a detailed evaluation by the experts and faculties later. Within 96 hours, you will get a detailed feedback. But the AI tool will provide a quick assessment for your written answers. And this AI tool will also help you prepare for your interview. It will provide the required feedback through which you can improve your preparation for the final stage of the exam as well. So with this, let's get started with the questions from IR and internal security. Let's look at question number 1 from set C. So this question states, consider the following statements. Statement 1, there is instability and worsening security situation in the Sahel region. See, during our YouTube sessions, be it the Hindu analysis, or be it the weekly quiz that we were conducting, or even Conquer Prelims for that matter, where we conducted a crash course on current affairs. In all these classes, I have been repeating that Sahel region in Africa is going to be very important. Because the region has suffered from multiple military coups, civil wars, and in general, the security situation has deteriorated. So there was a direct question given, and look at the format of the question. Statement-based question, you need to check whether they are correct or incorrect, and whether statement 2 explains statement 1. So statement 1 here is definitely correct. There has been instability, a worsening security situation in the African Sahel. Let me show you the map of the region as well. This right here, the highlighted region is the Sahel region, located in northern Africa. Between Sahara and the equatorial region, you find this sub-Saharan belt, which is called the African Sahel, that extends from the Atlantic towards the west to the Red Sea in the east. So this region that comprises of countries like Senegal, Mauritania, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and the others, including Sudan, collectively they are called the Sahel countries. This is a biogeographical region. So in this region, we have seen around 6 military coups in the last 4 years. Mali and Burkina Faso, for example, they have witnessed 2 military coups each. Even Niger has recently gone through a military coup, and Sudan has been going through a civil war. So obviously statement 1 is correct. There is instability and a deteriorating security situation.
Statement 2 says there have been military takeovers or coups d'etat, which is essentially a military takeover, in several countries of the Sahel region in the recent past. So both statements are correct, and statement 2 explains statement 1. The military coups are the reason why the security situation has largely deteriorated. So correct answer here would be option A. Both statements are correct, and statement 2 explains statement 1. Now let's look at the next question, question number 2 from set C. Again a statement based question. Statement 1 says India does not import apples from the United States. This is based on India-US trade relations, and in fact this question is a mix of international relations and environment and ecology. The first statement is related to IR. It's related to the trade relationship between India and US, but the second statement is related to environment and ecology. So it's a very interesting question that way. First statement is wrong. If you know the basic details of India-US trade, you would know that India imports apples from the US. Even if you haven't read about this, I'm sure all of you would have eaten the popular Washington apples, the bright red colored apples. So even if you apply common sense, you would be able to get this statement. This is a wrong statement. India does import apples from the US, that too in large quantities. The reason why this statement has been chosen is because recently we reduced the tariffs, the duties, which allowed for more import of American apples into India. And also US is one of the largest trading partners of India, the second largest trading partner for the last fiscal. And we have a trade surplus with the US. So that is why understanding the pattern of trade becomes important. Is that clear? So statement 1 is wrong. Statement 2, in India the law prohibits the import of GM food or genetically modified food without the approval of the competent authority. This statement is definitely correct. When it comes to genetically modified food, there is an authority in India, which is the Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, which has to approve the import of such GM food items. And there is a law which prohibits the import of such GM food crops without the approval or permission of the concerned government authorities. This law is nothing but the Environment Protection Act. The Environment Protection Act prohibits the introduction of GM food items into India without approval from Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee. So what's the right answer? Statement 1 is incorrect, but statement 2 is correct. So option D becomes the right answer. I hope many of you got this right. Next, question number 7. Again, a statement-based question from international relations. Consider the following statements. Recently, Venezuela has achieved a rapid recovery from its economic crisis and succeeded in preventing its people from fleeing or emigrating to other countries. Now, if you guys have been attending our sessions, you would know that we have discussed the recent crisis between Venezuela and Guyana, which is another South American country. Recently in Guyana, which is the neighboring country of Venezuela, a very rich oil deposit was discovered in the Essequibo River Delta, and Venezuela claimed this territory from Guyana, resulting in a border dispute. So during these developments, we had discussed that Venezuela is a country going through a deep economic crisis. There is massive inflation, massive unemployment, and the government is struggling to provide basic necessities to its people. So this statement is definitely wrong. It's incorrect. Venezuela has not recovered. It has not shown any rapid recovery. In fact, Venezuelans are fleeing the country. They're trying to go to other countries to find a better life. So statement 1 is incorrect. Statement 2 is definitely correct. We have been discussing the oil market in general because of the various conflicts and the fluctuation in oil prices which has been taking place. So in various sessions, we have mentioned repeatedly that Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves. So statement 2 is correct. So what's the right answer here? Option D again. Statement 1 is incorrect, but statement 2 is correct. Now let's look at question number 12. Another easy question. And by the way, this question shows you that the elimination method has been brought back by UPSC. You can easily answer this question through the elimination method. Last year, UPSC shocked everyone by removing the elimination method entirely, right? To answer those questions, especially when the question was asking how many statements were correct, you should know the details of all the given statements, which made the question very difficult. But this time the elimination method is back. You can eliminate some of the statements and easily arrive at the answer, and this question is one such question. Which of the following statements about exercise Mitra Shakti 2023 are correct? Now, in our UCAN sessions, Unacademy's Current Affairs Navigator, where we cover the current affairs of all the subjects from Tuesday to Friday, I had discussed this particular topic, and exercise Mitra Shakti is a military exercise between India and Sri Lanka. Through a MCQ question in UCAN and also through our weekly quiz on YouTube, I had covered this topic, mentioned that Mitra Shakti is an exercise between India and Sri Lanka. Now, this single fact is enough to solve this question. Even if you don't know anything about B, C and D, the moment you eliminate A, because it says that it's an exercise between India and Bangladesh, it's incorrect. The exercise between India and Bangladesh is Operation Sampriti. Sampriti is the military exercise between India and Bangladesh. It's not Mitra Shakti. So the moment you identify that A is incorrect, essentially that statement 1 is incorrect, you can rule out A, B and C. You can rule out A, B and C, and automatically D becomes the correct answer. 2, 3, 4. It was held in Ond military base at Pune. It focused on counter-terrorism, and Indian Air Force and Sri Lankan Air Force were involved in the operation with the armed forces. So 2, 3, 4 are correct, and that is your right answer. Option D is the right answer. Please tell me if you got this right. I hope many of you would have answered this correctly. Next, another easy question. UPSC has slightly drifted from the usual trend, and it has asked the question about books and authors, which usually doesn't do in the recent trend. The question is about popular books like The India Way and Why Bharat Matters. Who of the following is the author of these books? Again, if you are in touch with current affairs, if you know anything about international relations recently, you would know that these popular books have been written by India's Foreign Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar. So very straightforward, factual question. Just basic knowledge is enough to answer this question. Next, question number 17. Match the following type of question. Consider the following pairs. We have countries and the reason for the countries being in the news. We have Argentina matched with worst economic crisis. This statement is absolutely right. Basic world affairs knowledge is enough to answer this. Argentina is going through a deep economic crisis, just like Venezuela. So the first pair is correctly matched. Sudan has been matched with war between the country's regular army and paramilitary forces. Now, this topic also I have covered multiple times in our special class and through our YouTube sessions as well. Last year, Sudan descended into a civil war, which was primarily between the Sudanese army and a paramilitary force called the RSF. So this civil war has dragged the country into conflict. Many Indians were also trapped. Thousands of Indians were trapped. And India evacuated the Indian nationals through Operation Kaveri. So that is the reason why Sudan was in the news and was very relevant for our exams. Now, when it comes to the third pair, Turkey rescinded its membership of NATO. This is wrong. This is incorrect. Turkey remains one of the key members of NATO. It has been asked because, one, due to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, NATO has been in the news. And also, Turkey was initially blocking the membership of Finland and Sweden. Both Finland and Sweden have recently become members of NATO, and Turkey was the one country which was blocking their membership. That is the reason why this question has been asked. So Turkey remains a member of NATO, so it's an incorrect pair. So correct answer here is B. Only 2 given pairs are correct. Next, question number 18, another statement-based question. Consider the following statement. Statement 1. The Suez pipeline is a strategic route for Persian Gulf oil and natural gas shipments to Europe. This statement is definitely correct. Because of the crisis in the Red Sea and also due to the crisis in the Persian Gulf, the oil transportation and connectivity in the region and infrastructure projects in the region, they were very important for this year's exam. The Suez pipeline, which is mentioned in the question, it connects Red Sea with the Mediterranean. It is present in Egypt and it links the Red Sea near the Suez Canal with the Mediterranean Sea. It creates a shorter route via Egypt. This pipeline is very critical for shipping oil and gas from the Persian Gulf towards the European market and also towards the North American market. when the Houthis from Yemen started attacking ships in the Red Sea and commercial shipping through Red Sea was affected, Sumet pipeline was in the news. Also due to the IMEC corridor project that was proposed at the G20. These pipelines present in West Asia, they were in the news. So from Persian Gulf, oil and gas is transported through land, brought towards the Sumet pipeline in Egypt and transported towards the Mediterranean. So it's a strategic pipeline, very crucial for shipping oil and gas from Persian Gulf towards European markets. So if you come back to the question, you can say that statement 1 is correct, even statement 2 is correct. It connects the Red Sea with the Mediterranean Sea and it explains statement 1. The reason why it is a strategic route for transporting oil and gas from Persian Gulf to Europe is because it is connecting Red Sea with the Mediterranean, creating a shorter route and a more viable route. So option A becomes the correct answer. Both statements are correct and statement 2 is explaining statement 1. Coming to question 37, consider the following countries. A very interesting question. This is not entirely factual, it's more conceptual. If you can apply your basic common sense, if you are in touch with current affairs, I think you should be able to answer this question. The statement says, which of the above countries are frequently mentioned in the news for their low birth rates, aging population or declining population? Amongst the given 5 countries, there are 3 countries which suffer from a declining population and low fertility rates. One is Italy. You might remember during COVID-19 pandemic, Italy was one of the initial countries which took a massive hit because of its aging population. Because senior citizens were more vulnerable with regard to the pandemic. Japan and South Korea, both these countries are facing very low birth rates and a declining population, and this is a major demographic crisis that these 3 countries are facing. So what's the right answer? 1, 2 and 4. Option A is the correct answer here. You can rule out Nigeria because it's an African nation, a developing country. Obviously its birth rate would be higher, population growth would be higher. Same with South Africa as well. It has largely maintained its birth rate and it does not suffer from declining population. So even you can eliminate these 2 and still get the right answer. Coming to question number 49. This was based on International Grains Council. India is a member of International Grains Council? Yes, India is a member of International Grains Council. This question has been asked because International Grains Council, it implements the Grain Trade Convention of 1955. The Grain Trade Convention was in the news because of food crisis in several countries due to various wars, conflicts, and even climate change and disasters. For example, Russia-Ukraine war disrupted food shipments. Then climate change and as well as natural disasters, it resulted in shortage of essential food grains like rice, wheat, barley, etc. And it led to a food security crisis in many poor countries and African nations. So in that regard, International Grains Council does become important. That is why UPSC has picked this particular organization. The main mandate of the International Grain Council, which was set up in 1949, is to implement the Grain Trade Convention. So it essentially promotes cooperation between the exporting and importing countries. There are few exporting nations and importing nations who are members of the International Grains Council. Totally, there are 30 member countries and India is one of them. India is an exporting nation. And also recently, Egypt, which is a major wheat importing country, withdrew from the International Grains Council and the Grain Trade Convention. That was also a reason why the topic was in the news. So statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. Statement 2 says a country needs to be a member of the International Grains Council for exporting or importing rice and wheat. This is wrong. See, by being part of the council, you get assistance from the International Grains Council. You can cooperate with other countries and regulate the prices, ensure that there is stable food supplies. But it does not prohibit export and import for non-members. Non-member countries can still continue exporting and importing the food grains. So there is no such prohibition or restriction because that would be a violation of a country's sovereignty. So statement 2 is wrong. The correct answer is A. 1 only becomes the correct answer. Next, question number 74. Consider the following regarding World Toilet Organization. Now this was a bouncer question. UPSC always surprises us with such difficult questions. It is difficult because no one would expect a question on this organization. Otherwise, the question is simple if you know the basic facts. So UPSC has chosen this because India and even rest of the world has been prioritizing sanitation and hygiene, and the World Toilet Organization has been in the news. So it is a non-profit organization. It's a global non-profit entity that was established in early 2000 to promote awareness about sanitation and hygiene, etc. So let's look at the statements. It is one of the agencies of the UN. This is an incorrect statement. It's wrong. It's not part of the UN. It's an independent non-profit organization. It's a global non-profit entity. Second statement is definitely correct. The World Toilet Organization has some initiatives called World Toilet Summit. It marks the World Toilet Day and also conducts the World Toilet College to promote awareness about sanitation and hygiene amongst college students. So statement 2 is definitely correct. Statement 3 is wrong. It does not provide any funds or any financial support to least developed countries or developing countries to achieve the end of open defecation. This is wrong. It does not raise any funds or distribute finance for LDCs and developing nations. So 1 and 3 are incorrect. So what's the correct answer then? Option A, 2 only, becomes the correct answer. Next, question number 98, the last question from IR. This is a map-based question related to the North Sea, which has been in the news because North Sea has some very rich oil deposits. It is known for its rich oil and gas deposits, and that is why the North Sea was in the news. You need to identify which of the countries border the North Sea. Let me show you the map. See, this is where the North Sea is located. It is bound by the United Kingdom, France, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, Norway, and even Sweden. So North Sea has some rich oil deposits. It has been in the news because of Russia-Ukraine conflict. Because many European countries, West European countries, were dependent on Russian oil and gas. So after they imposed sanctions on Russia, they started focusing on their existing resources, and many oil companies scaled up oil production in the North Sea to ensure that West European countries can reduce their dependency on Russian oil and gas. That is one reason why the North Sea was in the news. So Germany and Norway, they share borders with the North Sea. Finland and Russia are located a little far away. You can eliminate 1 and 4. So 2 and 3, which means only 2 amongst the given countries share a border with the North Sea. Option B is your right answer. Now, let's take up the 3 questions from internal security. There were 3 questions from internal security, which is a rare occurrence because usually we don't get questions from internal security because it's a mains-oriented subject. But as I told you, since internal security is driven by current affairs and current developments, there can be such questions. There was a simple question on Chief of Defence Staff. What are the duties of CDS as head of the Department of Military Affairs? Now, this is a topic which I had covered recently in the weekly quiz on our YouTube channel and also through our UCAN sessions. Statement 1 says Permanent Chairman of Chiefs of Staff Committee. This is definitely correct. In fact, that was the primary purpose why the CDS post was created, based on recommendations of Kargil Review Committee. With regard to Chairman of Chiefs of Staff Committee, there was no permanent chairman previously, and one of the service chiefs from the Army, Navy or Air Force would assume this position in order to build integration between the 3 armed forces. But with this reform, with the creation of the post of CDS, a permanent chairman was appointed for Chiefs of Staff Committee that brings the 3 service chiefs together. It promotes jointness, integration. It optimizes the defense budget. And also the CDS acts as a single point advisor to the defense minister on all tri-service matters. So 3 is also correct. But however, the CDS does not have any military command over the 3 service chiefs. The Army Chief, Navy Chief and Air Force Chief, they will maintain their independent command over their respective forces. The CDS will not exercise any military command as such. Is that clear? So 2 becomes incorrect. So 1 and 3 only is the correct answer. Option D is the right answer over here. Next, question number 28. Operations undertaken by the Army towards upliftment of the local population in remote areas to include addressing of their basic needs is called. The correct answer is option C, Operation Sadbhavana. Especially in Jammu and Kashmir and also recently in Ladakh, the Indian Army has been conducting a civic action program through which security forces provide basic assistance to the local people in order to generate goodwill amongst the local people in a conflict zone. In conflict zones, it's very crucial to build a connect between the security forces and the locals so that they are in favor of the security forces. It creates an element of trust. It helps in winning the hearts and minds of the people. So Operation Sadbhavana has been in the news because Indian Army has been providing basic services like education, healthcare, skill development, etc. to the local youth in Kashmir and also in Ladakh. And also you can eliminate the other given options like Operation Sankalp. We have discussed this in our current affairs sessions. Operation Sankalp is of the Indian Navy, where across Arabian Sea and in the Persian Gulf, Indian Navy has been countering piracy and other non-state threats. Operation Maitri was India's disaster management assistance given to Nepal in 2015. So you can eliminate those two. So Operation C, essentially option C, that is Operation Sadbhavana, becomes the right answer here. Now coming to the last question, question number 39. Now this again is a rare question, very factual, very difficult honestly if you don't know the facts. We usually see such questions coming in, let's say, a CDS exam or SSC or Group B exams, not in UPSC Civil Services. But UPSC, as you know, sometimes can be unpredictable. It's an unpredictable service commission. So this rare question was asked where you need to check whether the ranks of three services are correctly matched, the equivalent ranks are correctly matched or not. So from Army, Air Force, Navy, different ranks have been provided. You need to check whether they are the correct equivalent ranks or not. Now let me explain this quickly. First we have brigadier, right? If you look at the equivalent ranks of the three armed forces, brigadier is the equivalent of Air Commodore and Commodore in the other two services. So as a result, one is incorrect. Don't get confused. Commander of the Navy is different. It's a different rank altogether. There is a difference between Commodore and Commander. There is a difference of 2 ranks between them. So this is an incorrect match. Next you have Major General matched with Air Vice Marshal and Rear Admiral. That is the equivalent ranks that exist. But here it's matched with Air Vice Marshal and Vice Admiral. So again, it's incorrect. The third one, which is Major, Squadron Leader, Lieutenant Commander. This is a correct match. This is the only correct match which has been given. Look at the fourth one, Lieutenant Colonel, Group Captain and Captain. Lieutenant Colonel actually is the equivalent of a wing commander in the Air Force and commander in the Navy. So this again is incorrect. So what's the correct answer? The correct answer is 3 only. Option D becomes the correct answer. So this was one of the relatively difficult questions because very factual. You need to know all the ranks of the three services and which are the equivalent ranks. So those who are familiar with this would have got this right, but others I'm sure would have struggled. But in general, the paper was relatively easy. Even if you can skip some of these questions, I think you should still be able to score well. I think if you are getting 95, somewhere in the range of 95, you can safely assume you're going to clear. So get started with your mains preparation without wasting any time. And if our sessions have been of any help, do let us know in the comments. Now I'll hand over the session to Himabindu ma'am, who will be discussing the questions from Science and Technology. Thanks for watching. All the very best.
Hello and welcome to Unacademy. Welcome to the complete paper analysis of GS 2024 Prelims. Let us first see the questions and the right answers from the science and technology. And after discussing all the answers, let us analyze how many questions are simple, how many are difficult, how many are from the current affairs and how many are from the NCERTs and how many are random, and what should be the approach for the preparation for the next year, what we can learn from this year paper. All these things we are going to analyze at the end of completing all these answers. Let us start our discussion with the first question from Science and Technology, that is question number 58. Which of the following words or phrases is most appropriately used to denote an interoperable network of 3D virtual worlds that can be accessed simultaneously by millions of users who can exert property rights over virtual items? And the correct answer for this question is metaverse. What is a metaverse? It is like a virtual universe. Metaverse is like a virtual universe. So in this, we can enter into a virtual space, and we can do some shopping where the objects, like say for example real estate, it is not a real building, or an art piece, it is not the real art piece, or some clothes, they are not the real clothes. We are going to shop virtual assets. What are these virtual assets called as? They are nothing but NFTs, non-fungible tokens. What do you mean by non-fungible tokens? Non-exchangeable tokens. For example, cryptocurrency, dollar, rupee, these are exchangeable with equivalency. So therefore, they are called fungible tokens. So we can shop virtual assets, okay, like electronic gadgets or real estate or clothes or whatever it is. Okay, they are nothing but NFTs. And how do we purchase? What is the currency used? That is also virtual currency. What do you mean by this virtual currency? This is nothing but bitcoins or any type of cryptocurrency. It means the metaverse is related to the blockchain technology. As you all know, the NFTs and cryptocurrencies, they both are a part of blockchain technology. That is the meaning of this particular sentence in the question. Millions of users are owning it. Okay, millions of people will own it because it is a blockchain technology, like a distributed ledger. Okay, so and it is also including augmented reality, virtual reality. It is a combination of all these things. Interoperable network of 3D virtual worlds. This is related to the NFTs that can be accessed simultaneously by millions of users. This sentence is related to the blockchain technology, who can exert property rights. Everybody owns this. Nobody can modify that. Everybody can own it and nobody can misuse it. That kind of a technology is called blockchain technology over virtual items. What are these virtual items? NFTs, non-fungible tokens. Metaverse is a combination of all these things. So the correct answer for this question is metaverse. Okay. Is it an expected question? Yes. Since the time Facebook changed its name as Meta, metaverse has been a buzzword. We heard this word metaverse so many times in the newspapers, in the social media and many discussions. And even I discussed about metaverse repeatedly in my plus courses, special classes and also the UCAN initiative. Right? Moving on to the next question. The next question from Science and Technology is 61. With reference to radioisotope thermoelectric generators, RTGs, consider the following statements. Statement number 1. RTGs are miniature fission reactors. Is it a right statement? No, this is a wrong statement. Okay, this is radioisotope. From this word itself, we can understand that this is related to radioactive decay. radioactive decay but not fission. RTG is based on the principle of radioactive decay but not the fission. So the first statement is wrong. Next, RTGs are used for powering the onboard systems of the spacecrafts. Is it correct? Yes. What are the most popular spacecrafts which are powered by RTGs? Our favorite Voyagers. And even I discussed about Voyagers repeatedly in the plus courses, special classes and all those things. Okay, Voyagers are the two spacecrafts which were launched in the year 1977 and they are about to complete 50th birthday. Recently, they are in the news, okay, in the context of NASA switched off some unwanted components of the Voyagers so that the Voyagers can work in the energy saving mode, so that Voyager's lifespan can be extended, because the ambition is to complete the 50 years of Voyagers and the plutonium fuel in the Voyagers is about to get completed. They are about to run out of the fuel. So NASA turned off some less important components of Voyagers so that presently they are working in the energy saving mode. In that context, okay, this question appeared. So is it an expected question? Yes, very much. Okay, so this is an expected question and it is from the current affairs, not from the basics. This is quite from the current affairs. And is it a conceptual question? Yes, it is a conceptual question and I will rate it as an easy question. And RTGs can use plutonium-238. Yes, the fuel used in the Voyagers. And are we using RTGs only in the Voyagers? No. Okay, many spacecrafts of NASA and even ISRO is planning to use this RTG systems and even the nuclear fission reactors in the spacecrafts, because solid fuels, liquid fuels, cryogenic fuels, with any of these fuels, you cannot expect a spacecraft to work in the space for approximately 50 years. Most of the other spacecrafts which are fueled by solid, liquid or cryogenic or semi-cryogenic fuels, okay, their lifespan is almost like 1 to 2 years or maximum 3 years. Such a long duration we can expect only when they are powered by the nuclear fuels. Okay, so NASA is operating many spacecrafts using this particular principle of radioisotope thermoelectric generators, and even ISRO is planning to develop such spacecrafts. Okay, and RTGs can use plutonium-238. Yes, that is the fuel used in the RTG component, okay, which is a byproduct of the weapons development. This statement is about how to produce the plutonium-238. Let us see a little bit of explanation here. The plutonium-238 can be obtained as a byproduct of the weapons development. Okay, what is the fuel used in the weapons? Which weapons we are speaking about? We are speaking about the fission bombs. And the fission bombs are nothing but the atom bombs. Okay, and the weapon grade fuel is nothing but, okay, very high percentage of fissile material. Fissile material is plutonium-239, not 238. Plutonium-239 is the fissile material. This is the fuel in the weapons. But when we make these weapons, plutonium-238 is a byproduct. So one clarity here is the fuel used in the weapons is plutonium-239 and plutonium-238 is a byproduct of the weapons development. Okay, that is how this plutonium-238 can be produced. That point is given in this particular statement. Plutonium-238 is the fuel in the RTG, which is a byproduct of weapons development. Okay, is there any other procedure for developing the plutonium-238? Yes. Okay, if you take neptunium-237, Okay, neptunium 237 and add one neutron to it. Neptunium 237 plus one neutron, that is irradiation. Irradiation. It is also made by irradiating the Neptune 237 with the neutron followed by a beta decay. Is it clear? That is one more way. Neptunium 237 plus one neutron will form the plutonium 238. Okay, it will immediately form, okay, actually it will immediately form the Neptunium 238. Then after that it will undergo beta decay and then it will form the plutonium 238. I repeat, Neptunium 237. To that neutron irradiation means adding a neutron. Then it will first become Neptunium 238. Then it will get converted into plutonium 238 by a process called as beta decay. This is how the plutonium 238 will be produced. So what are the two procedures of making the plutonium 238? One is as a byproduct of the weapons development. Second one is neutron irradiation of the Neptunium 237. These are the two different ways in which we can produce the plutonium 238, and that plutonium 238 is used as a fuel in the RTG. Okay, so the fuel in the Voyagers and many other popular spacecrafts is nothing but plutonium 238. Okay, so this statement is wrong and these two statements are correct, and the correct answer is B, 2 and 3. Okay, moving on to the next question. The next question is 62. Consider the following statements. Giant stars live much longer than the dwarf stars. Compared to the dwarf stars, giant stars have greater rate of nuclear reactions. Okay, what is the context of this question? Why this question appeared? If you remember, in the last 1 year, there have been numerous articles on the solar storms. Solar storms. Even we discussed about the solar storms in many of our classes, in the Conquer Prelims, in the special classes plus courses. We repeatedly discussed about the solar storms. There are so many solar storms. And also, one very important event that happened this year is Aditya L1. Aditya L1. So, usually we will get questions from the current affairs, but UPSC will not ask you the very obvious questions. Solar storms and Aditya L1 are very obvious. So, they have given something related to the sun. Something related to the sun. So, that is about the star life cycle. That is about the star life cycle. So this question is about the star life cycle. Indirectly, it is related to the current affairs. That is the context in which probably they could have given this question. So, before answering this question, let us know a little bit about the star life cycle. Okay, just like we all have a life cycle, stars also have a life cycle. They have a birth and a death, and in between they pass through several stages. So, let us first see what are the different stages. The first stage is a cloud of gases. A cloud of gases will condense to form the protostar. Protostar. So, here what happens, the helium will undergo, like the hydrogens will undergo nuclear fusion to form the helium. Okay, as you all know, the reaction that is occurring in the stars, how do the stars generate so much of energy? The energy in the stars is coming from the nuclear fusion reaction. Fundamentally, hydrogens fusing to form helium. Okay, that reaction will just start here. Okay, the second stage of the star life cycle is main sequence star. Main sequence star. Here also same hydrogen will combine with the hydrogen to form the helium. Okay, but it is in the protostar it just started. Here it is in the process. In the process most actively. It means comparatively more fusion is occurring. Okay, more fusion reaction is occurring. That is, comparatively more hydrogens are fusing and producing more helium. So that is called main sequence star. What is the significance of this main sequence star? Our sun is in the main sequence stage. After main sequence stage, the next stage is called as red giant. Okay, like protostar, main sequence, red giant. In all the three stages, the reaction is hydrogen fusing with another hydrogen to form the helium. But the only difference is protostar starting, just beginning, the fusion reaction is just beginning. Most of the fusion will occur in the main sequence. Okay, in the red giant, okay, it is about to end, towards the end stage of it. That means the fuel is almost exhausted. Okay, at the core of the star, at the core, hydrogen fuel is exhausted. But at the surroundings, the hydrogen fuel, okay, is still undergoing fusion. Is it clear? So the hydrogen fusion is about to get completed. That is called as red giant. Then after that comes the dwarf star, white dwarf. In the white dwarf, okay, the hydrogen fuel in the white dwarf, the hydrogen fuel is almost completed. So therefore, it will become small, condense, because energy is not getting released. That stage is called as white dwarf. Okay, so I repeat, nuclear fusion reaction, hydrogens fusing to form helium. This reaction will begin in the protostar. Most of it occurs in the main sequence, about to get completed in the red giant, almost completed in the white dwarf. Okay, then after that, if the star is a huge star, supermassive, then it will become supernova. And if it is a small star, okay, then it will become, okay, then it will become the white dwarf. So this is the star life cycle. Now let us check the question. Giant stars live much longer than the dwarf stars? No. Giant stars will soon become white dwarf. Okay, or supernova. Okay, if they are huge, they will become supernova. If they are small, they will become white dwarf. So red giant is not a long duration stage. It will quickly process into the second stage. And compared to white dwarf, giant stars have greater rate of nuclear reactions? Yes, correct. This is wrong and this is correct. Why? I told you, we are speaking about the fusion reaction. We are speaking about the fusion reaction, hydrogen plus hydrogen forming helium. Okay, it will start in what? Protostar. Most of it will occur in what? Main sequence star. About to complete where? Red giant star. Completed where? In the white dwarf stage. So when compared to white dwarf, okay, most of the reaction, that is greater rate of nuclear reactions when compared to the white dwarf, because by the stage of white dwarf, the nuclear reaction is almost completed. Okay, so therefore, when compared to the dwarf stage, red giant stage is having greater rate of nuclear reactions. So the second statement is correct. Okay, so statement number 1 is incorrect. Okay, because giant stars live much longer than the dwarf stars. No, it is a short duration stage. Red giant is a short duration stage. It will quickly progress into the dwarf stage. Okay, so statement number 1 is incorrect, but the statement number 2 is correct. D is the right answer. Moving on to the next question. The next question is, Which of the following is synthesized in the human body that dilates blood vessels and increases the blood flow? Okay. Is it from the current affairs or NCERTs? None of them. It is a random question. Is it possible to expect this question? No, cannot be expected or not expected question. It's a random question, neither from the current affairs nor from the NCERTs directly. It's a random question. Okay. And only if you know this, then you can answer it. Okay, and I don't rate it as an easy question. I will rate it as a difficult question only. That is about the, is there any context for asking this question? No special context also. Okay, we have seen a specific context and a reason for the earlier questions. There is nothing like that here. Okay, but the right answer here is nitric oxide. Okay, is it synthesized in our body? Yes, of course. Okay, we have something called amino acids. What are amino acids? They are the building blocks. They are the building blocks of proteins. And we all consume a lot of proteins in our food, and some of you will take protein shakes also, particularly if you are into the gym workouts and all. So what is an amino acid? In this, the word amino means NH2 and the word acid means COOH. So when you eat protein food, the nitrogen enters into our body. Then it will get converted into nitrates, nitrites. From there it will become, okay, nitric oxide. So this is how nitric oxide is synthesized in our body. What is its role? Its role in our body is, it's a vasodilator. The word vaso is related to blood vessels. Vaso means blood vessels. Dilator means what? Okay, if the blood vessel is narrow, it will make the blood vessels broader. That is the duty of a dilator. If the blood vessels become broader, then what happens? Because of the vasodilation, what happens? BP reduces. Common sense point. If the blood vessels are narrow, the blood must be pumped with high pressure. But if the blood vessels are broader, the blood can be pumped with low pressure. Okay, the blood pressure decreases. The chance of blood clots, because broader blood vessels, even if there is a clot, there will not be any obstruction to the blood flow because the blood vessels will become broader. Okay, and heart attacks. So that is the role of nitric oxides. So you got one more reason to consume the protein rich food. Not only muscle building, you have one more good reason to consume the protein rich food. That is about the nitric oxide. It's a random question, not from the NCERTs, not from the current affairs. There is no special context why this question came. It's just a random question. Okay, so that is about the nitric oxide. And moving on to the next question. Consider the following activities: identification of narcotics, monitoring the precipitation, tracking the migration of animals. How many of the above activities can radars be used? Okay, is it an expected question? Of course, an expected question. Did I discuss this in my previous classes? Yes. We discussed about the radars in the space technology, in the defense technology, okay, in multiple places. Okay, as a part of the plus courses, special classes, multiple times I discussed about the radars, even the types of radars also. So first of all, what is a radar? Okay, radar is a radio waves. Okay, it is based on the radio waves. What a radar will do? Okay, it will emit the radio waves, and these radio waves will hit some surface, the radio waves can hit some surface. The surface can be clouds, the surface can be soil, the surface can be some drugs, like here, narcotic drugs. Is it clear? Or clouds, I told you, clouds, precipitation, okay, soil, type of soil, whether the soil is a black soil, red soil, or the soil is having more moisture, or is it dry soil, or do you have some oil inside the under the ground, okay. So the nature of the soil, and also forest cover or the crop cover, and the surface can also be some animals. Is it clear? So like this, the radars will emit the radio waves, step number 1. Step number 2, these radio waves will hit some surface. The surface can be literally anything, and then this surface will reflect the radio waves, that is step number 3. And step number 4, the radar will analyze the reflected radio waves. Radar will analyze the reflected radio waves. By analyzing this reflected radio waves, it will understand the nature of the surface. It will understand the nature of the surface. This is how the radars will work. We have different types of radars: active radars, passive radars. We have beam radars, and we have synthetic aperture radars used in the spacecrafts. So like this, we have different types of radars. Okay. Can we identify the narcotic drugs using the radars? Yes. Which drug is it? It is because, okay, the frequency and wavelength of the radio waves reflected by different drugs can differ. It means if the reflected back radio waves frequency is more, it can be the drug A, and if the frequency of the reflected radio waves is less, it can be the drug B. So different drugs will emit different types of, reflect different types of radio waves. So the radar can understand which drug it is by analyzing the frequency of the reflected back radio waves. I repeat, the radar can understand which drug it is by analyzing the frequency of the reflected back radio waves. Okay, so that is how it can do that. Same way, for example, there is more cloud cover. The frequency of the reflected back radio waves can be lesser. If there is lesser cloud cover, the frequency of the reflected back radio waves can be more. So depending on that, we can also predict the precipitation. Same way, we can also track the migration of the animals. Okay, like some information is given here. A new device called drug radar gun has been unveiled in Florida. Precipitation intensity and area of the precipitation and mean precipitation can also be analyzed using the radars. Okay, and these are called precipitation radars. And also the radars can study about the animal migration. So the right answer is all the 3. C is the right answer. Moving on to the next question. Okay, the next question is, consider the following aircrafts: Rafale, MiG-29, Tejas Mark 1. How many of the above are considered 5th generation fighter aircrafts? Is it an expected question? Yes, very much expected question. In the context of so many wars in the world, a question from defense is very much expected. Okay, and we discussed about all these in the defense technology in our plus courses and also many special classes. Okay, and Rafale and Tejas Mark 1, they both are 4.5 generation. So this is based on how much advanced the fighter jet is. Okay, and MiG-29 is a 4th generation fighter aircraft. None of them is a 5th generation fighter aircraft. So the correct answer is none of them. It is a quite expected question. Is it from the science basics or current affairs? It is from the current affairs. Okay, and I would definitely rate it as an easy question. Okay, right. Moving on to the next question. In which of the following are the hydrogels used? In which of the following are the hydrogels used? Controlled drug delivery in the patients, mobile air conditioning systems, preparation of the industrial lubricants. Okay, hydrogels. First of all, what are the hydrogels? Hydrogel is a gel composed of one or more polymers suspended in the water. If you take any polymer and it is suspended in the water, that is called hydrogels. And yes, hydrogels can be used in the controlled drug delivery into the patients, mobile air conditioning systems. How can they be used in the air conditioning systems? What they will do is, hydrogel will absorb, okay, water from the moisture in the air. So therefore, it can help in two ways. One is as a coolant, and the second one is control the humidity. It will control the humidity. So these are the two ways in which it can protect our electronic devices. It will reduce the humidity by absorbing the moisture, and using that moisture it will also work like a coolant. Okay, so yes, this is also correct. And preparation of industrial lubricants, okay, because it is a hydrogel, okay, it can work, it is like a gel like a material, so therefore definitely it can work like a lubricant also. So the right answer is D, 1, 2 and 3. Okay, and it is not that much expected, and there is no specific context of this question also, but of course it is from the current affairs, not from the science basics. Right, moving on to the next question. Which one of the following is the exhaust pipes emissions from the fuel cell electric vehicles powered by the hydrogen? Okay, so in this hydrogen, actually how it works is, there will be an anode and there will be a cathode. They both are separated by a membrane, and hydrogen enters into the anode, and then what happens is the electrons will get separated here. The electrons will get separated here, and the electrons will pass through, okay, a circuit, and the protons will pass through the membrane. Finally, the electrons and protons both reach the cathode. Here the electrons plus protons, they will combine with oxygen which is coming from. Electrons plus protons and oxygen coming from the atmosphere will combine and will form the water. So what is the effluent? What is the effluent in this fuel cell? Okay, the effluent in the fuel cell is water, only the water vapor. And what is this water? It's a byproduct. And what is the actual product? Okay, the actual product is energy. The actual product is energy. Byproduct is water vapor. Okay, and here water vapor is the right answer. Question number 67. Okay, moving on to the next question. Recently, the term pumped storage hydropower is actually and appropriately discussed in the context of which of the following? The right answer is long duration energy storage. The right answer is long duration energy storage. Let us see how this pumped storage hydropower will work. Here, there will be two water reservoirs. Water reservoir. One at high level, I mean elevated position, there is water here, and there is another water reservoir. Okay, in the second one, this is second water reservoir. This is at the lower level. Then simple. When the water flows from the higher level to the lower level, okay, through a turbine, okay, it will generate energy. Energy released. Energy released. And when this water moves from low level to higher level, energy consumed. So here it will consume energy and it will store the energy and it will release the energy whenever it is needed. So this is nothing but pumped storage hydropower. And it is used as a long duration energy storage. It has nothing to do with irrigation, lift irrigation, rainwater harvesting, etc. So the right answer is C. Moving on to the next question. Okay, and by the way, is this question expected? Yes, of course expected. And is this question from the current affairs or science basics? It is from the current affairs. And why this is expected? Because we have to reduce the carbon emissions. Now the focus on the alternative fuels, alternative and renewable energy sources. Renewable energy sources is increasing. So in that context, this particular topic is very important. Okay, yes. Moving on to the next question. The membrane bioreactors are often discussed in the context of assisted reproductive technologies, drug delivery, vaccine. No, wrong, wrong, wrong. Actually, we can do this, attempt this particular question using a simple logic. Okay, this is a membrane bioreactors. Leave everything else. Just focus on this particular word membrane. Why do we use membrane? To filter. What do we filter? Pollutants. So very clearly the right answer is wastewater treatment technologies. So this is simply, is it from current affairs? Yes. And is it an expected question? Yes. Why this is expected? Lot of pollution. We are increasing all types of pollution. Pollution control is an urgent requirement. Okay, so it is quite expected question. It is from the current affairs and a very common sense based question. Not at all difficult. I will rate it as a very easy question. Right. Moving on to the next question. Consider the following: battery storage, biomass generators, fuel cells, rooftop solar photovoltaic units. Which of the following are distributed energy resources? Just like the previous question here also, let us go by a simple word, distributed. Common sense question. With common sense you can easily answer. Distributed means, okay, like say for example, if there is any energy source at one place, this is the energy source at one place and the energy will be sent to different places, what it will be called as? This will be called as centralized, not distributed energy. For example, nuclear reactor. Do you have a nuclear reactor in your bedroom or hall or kitchen or what? No. Everybody cannot have a nuclear reactor. One reactor will be there, okay, in one city or in one big place. From there the energy will be supplied. That is not a distributed energy resource. Is it clear? But everybody can have a solar panel on their rooftop. Everybody cannot have a nuclear reactor on their rooftop. So it is not a distributed energy resource, but everybody can have a solar panel on the rooftop. Okay, so it is a distributed energy resource. It means we all can have that energy resource. We all can have. It is not centralized. It is with just one word. In general, we speak about the elimination technique. This is not elimination technique. This is inclusion technique. Okay, I'm using a new word. This is inclusion technique. Is it clear? We are including this word distributed here. And in this question, we are including this word membrane. Just based on one particular word, we can easily guess the answer for these questions. Is it clear? So observing the keywords is very important. That's a lesson to take from here. Okay. So what are the battery storage? Yes. I have an EV in my home. I'm using a lithium ion battery or a sodium ion battery. Yes, everybody can have. It is not a centralized, correct? Biomass generators. What is a biomass generator? It will burn the biomass, your waste. Okay, wastage, domestic wastage, all this is called biomass. It will burn the biomass and directly produce high pressure steam. See, biomass is burnt. Heat is generated. The heat is used to generate high pressure steam. And the steam will rotate a turbine and it will generate the electricity. That is biomass generator. Everybody who is generating the waste can use this. It is not centralized. Fuel cells. Okay, we just spoke about the hydrogen fuel cell, microbial fuel cell. Okay, we all can use it. It's not like a nuclear reactor that it must be located in one place and controlled by some government regulations and all that. Yes, all the four is the right answer. Is it expected? Of course expected. Why it is expected? Again, energy. Alternative energy sources is a buzzword. We can easily expect this question. It is easy, expected, current affairs, okay, and common sense based question. Okay, right. Moving on to the next question and the last question. This is from the NCERTs. This is from the NCERTs. Okay, groundnut, horse gram soybeans. Nothing to explain. This is a factual question. Those who know can write it. Those who do not have studied that particular point cannot write it. As simple as that. Okay. Fabaceae, also called as leguminosae or pea family. Pea, garden pea. Okay. Garden pea, horse gram. Most of our pulses, or we call them as legumes. Is it clear? They are dicotyledonous, dicots we say, two cotyledons. If you observe in all of them, if you can crack that particular peanut, you can make it into two halves. Horse gram, okay, or any other like say for example peas, chickpeas, different types of peas, soybeans or any other beans like broad beans, okay, all these beans you can break it into two parts. Okay, the seed will be like this, you can make it like this, two cotyledons, dicotyledons, Fabaceae, leguminosae, legumes or pea family. It's a factual question. Okay, now coming to the analysis. The questions completed. Question and answer discussion is completed. Coming to the analysis. How many questions are from the astrophysics? Okay, one question that is about the star life cycle. Question number 62. How many questions are from the space and nuclear? Okay, RTGs. One interesting thing is, this is a very crucial year for space technology. Aditya L1, Exposat, Chandrayaan 3, there are very important launches, but they are very expected. Everybody will expect a question from that. So UPSC will skip the most expected questions. So therefore, they all are skipped. Disappointing thing is all of them are skipped. Okay, and they focused on the RTGs. Okay, and from the defense technology we got this question, generations of the fighter jets. From biology or biotech we got this vasodilation, nitric oxide, okay, membrane bioreactors, that membrane keyword question, okay, in the waste filtration. Pea family, Fabaceae or leguminosae, these are from the biology or biotech. ICT we got this question from metaverse. Energy, we got 3 questions which are of course expected because energy is the most important concept. Okay, especially alternative forms of energy. Okay, 68, 77, okay, and all these things. Physics, there are questions based on, there is one question on radars. Okay, application of radars. Material science, hydrogels. So this is how we can divide the questions. Okay, and coming to current affairs. Okay, there are total 11 questions from science and technology, 10 are from current affairs, and only one question is from the NCERTs. That one question is also from the plant classification, Fabaceae, the family, okay, which family it belongs to. Okay, so for one question, should you have to prepare from 6th class to 12th class NCERT is a smart decision that you can take, and we can conclude that most of the questions from science and technology are expected from the current affairs and easy. That's all for this. Whoever is crossing above 90 questions, okay, prepare for mains, and whoever is not crossing above 90 questions, all the best, okay, and you start your preparation with lot of motivation for the next year. All the best for all of you. Thank you so much.